Eyes snap open. Every inch of his body feels like it's been pulverized. He is locked in a prison of pain, unable to twitch a single muscle. One glance is all it takes to clock the vibe. He is lying in a filth-ridden shack in the slums. And right there, keeping a silent vigil, is his sister. But the visual is wrong. It triggers a nightmare flashback, the brutal beatdown from those local thugs. He remembers how she threw herself over him, becoming a human shield to absorb every hit meant for his skin. She patched him up later, completely ignoring the fact that she was bleeding out herself. But peace is a luxury they don't get. The goons bust back into the room. First move, they boot his sister, but she doesn't scream. Not a peep. She just crumples. Turns out she is already gone. Cold. But do these trash bags care? Nope. Zero empathy. They are actually shocked that their little workout session a few days ago was enough to punch her ticket to the afterlife. Slum rule number 1, everything has a price tag, even a corpse. So they grab her, ready to cash in on her remains. Hell no. Tiny's mind is screaming fight, but his body is on strike. He strains, but his muscles are basically jelly. He forces a tremble into his hand. Then boom, a blue mana glow ignites. Suddenly, the juice is back. He is mobile. He roars at the scumbags to back off and launches himself. He actually shoves one goon back, turning himself into a barrier over his sister's body. The thugs are insulted by the audacity. A slum rat fighting back. They start stomping him out, relentless kicks raining down. Tiny takes it all. Bites his tongue, refuses to budge from her corpse. Eventually, the goons realize it's not worth the hassle and bounce. Once the room clears, Tiny's gears start turning. This isn't how it went down before. The script has flipped, and he is confused. Specifically the magic. He remembers his timeline. Clearly, he wasn't supposed to unlock mana until way later in the game. Reality check. He actually regressed. He used to be the Hammer King, the strongest warrior. When the monster apocalypse wiped the map, he soloed the Beast Lord. He won, but he was knocking on death's door. That's when Esgard, an old knight barely hanging on nearby, called out to him. He dropped a massive secret and told Tiny, "Find me in the past, as soon as possible." Then the old guy triggered a magic ring and yeeted our boy straight back through the timeline. Back in the present, Tiny replays Esgard's final request. This is his shot to rewrite the ending. But the realization stings. He is back, sure, but he is raging that Esgard couldn't have sent him back just a little earlier. Like 2 days earlier would have saved his sister. Why spawn into this exact tragic moment? It doesn't make sense. Before he can spiral, he hacks up blood. Right, his current body is trash. No time to cry over spilled milk. Truth is, Esgard was probably gambling. He didn't even know if the time travel tech was stable. Tiny decides to lock in. Use this chance to give his sister a real goodbye. He hasn't forgotten Esgard's order, that he needs to track the old knight down. And he will. But first, Wolf needs to die. Wolf is the scumbag boss behind his sister's death. In the last timeline, Tiny barely scraped by, getting revenge on him. This time, he is going to annihilate him. But respect comes first. He arranges a funeral. Cut to Tiny standing over her coffin. Irina wasn't blood, but they shared the same curse, jet black hair and eyes. On this continent, looking like that is a bad omen. Tiny was a pariah, but Irina, she saw a brother in him after losing her own. It eats him alive that he never got to pay back the warmth she gave him. The priest starts the chant. In the back, Emma, Irina's friend, is clocking Tiny's vibe. He is different. Intense. She figures the grief of losing his last relative finally broke him. Emma flashes back to earlier. She walked in and found him chowing down on food right next to his sister's cold body. It was beyond disturbing. Even freakier. All his bruises were gone. Vanished. Then he just scooped up Irina's body like it weighed nothing. Emma lost it. She was terrified by how detached he seemed, yelling that he was disrespecting Irina's memory. He didn't flinch. Just gave her a solemn thanks for the soup and promised to square the debt. Looking at him now, she still can't read him. Meanwhile, Tiny is focused on balancing the scales. He remembers how she always hyped him up, telling him to keep his chin up. He is done slouching. No more pity parties. He speaks to her spirit in his mind, vowing no regrets this time. Cut to 1 month later. He has been burning mana, grinding through a hellish training arc. It is time to hunt. He pulls up to Wolf's HQ. The low-level thugs out front spot him, pegging him for a beggar. When Tiny casually asks for the boss, they get irritated. One thug swings for a slap. Tiny snatches his wrist mid-air. Crunch. The grip is like a vice. "You think I'm just some kid?" Tiny smirks. The goon shrieks like a banshee and drops to his knees. Tiny stalks toward the next thug, who can't wrap his brain around how a literal child possesses this kind of god-tier power. The guy figures the kid must be juiced up on some chemical stimulant. Convincing himself it's just a toddler, he aggressively snatches Tiny's collar. He tries to ragdoll the boy, but only succeeds in stretching the fabric. It's like trying to deadlift a solid steel anvil instead of a human child. Tiny hits him with a smirk, letting him know he's way denser than he looks, and the dude is just embarrassing himself. A single kick sends the thug flying. Internally, Tiny is buzzing. His mana is finally clicking perfectly with his physical vessel. This level of synchronization was a pipe dream in his past life. This secret cultivation method is the real deal, forging a constant, powerful loop between his energy and his muscles. The only catch to this overpowered build is that he has to consume ungodly amounts of calories to sustain it. Shout out to Emma for keeping him fed. While he's lost in his own headspace, the remaining henchmen are just frozen, staring at him with a mix of total confusion and pure terror. Tiny realizes something crucial. Raw mana might be weak, but it flows effortlessly into a body that's already been battered. He launches the thug skyward, ironically thanking the crew for softening the guy up earlier. The body becomes a projectile smashing straight into the HQ, busting through the walls and putting the whole base on high alert. Immediately, they clock him as that same beggar kid from before. They start clowning him for pulling up solo with no gear, but Tiny just grins and grips a fallen goon by the ankle. Who says I'm unarmed? The victim screams in agony as Tiny starts swinging him around like a human flail, using the guy's body to bludgeon the rest of the squad. It's a horror show, and within moments the entire room is leveled, wiped out by his makeshift biological weapon. With the fodder dealt with, he locks eyes on the elites. The Landers brothers are the last ones standing. Tiny flicks a finger, silently daring them to make a move. One brother steps up, blade drawn, ready to run our boy through without hesitation. Then, he freezes, mesmerized by the mana aura swirling around the kid. His greed instantly spikes. Mana user corpses sell for a fortune on the black market. Tiny looks bored out of his mind, realizing his human bat is totally spent and about to fall apart. He tosses the guy aside, recalling how his old master used to chew him out for using people as weapons. To fix that brutal habit, his instructor drilled him in the art of pure close-quarters combat. That's exactly the playbook he's opening now. Both brothers rush him at once, sinking their attacks, but Tiny dances back, reading their telegraphs like an open book. He blasts one with a punch and snaps a kick at the other. He seizes one brother and slams him toward the pavement with violent force. But before the guy can even kiss the floor, Tiny intercepts him with a lightning-fast kick. Just like that, the duo is out cold. Finally, the boss emerges. Wolf, leader of the invaders. Tiny recognizes him instantly from the previous timeline. This guy isn't human. He's a silver werebeast, a direct bloodline descendant of the royal beast family. Back then, Tiny never figured out why a royal rarity was hiding in a dump like this. Mostly because he nearly died trying to kill him last time. But now, he's gonna get answers. Wolf looks shook, stunned that a kid dismantled his entire crew. When Tiny calmly announces that Wolf is next on the menu, the leader doesn't hesitate, triggering his transformation. Tiny smirks, glad the guy isn't holding back. But then, the confusion hits. Once the transformation is complete, he's not a majestic silver werebeast. He's just a generic garden variety mutt. Wolf catches the disappointed vibe and goes feral, charging in with claws swiping. Tiny weaves through the attacks. Sure, Wolf is faster than the Sword Brothers, but he's nothing compared to the monster Tiny fought in his past life. Tiny catches Wolf's jaw and crushes it with a burst of mana, flinging the beast backward. He recalls a tip from an old beastkin ally on how to handle these guys when they go berserk. Time to put that theory to the test. Enraged Wolf lunges again, but Tiny sidesteps every slash. He slips into the blind spot and delivers a punishing kick to the ribs. Satisfied with the opening, Tiny decides to beat him within an inch of his life. The assault is relentless. His old pal said, the only way to reset a werebeast is to literally beat the animal instinct out of them, since their regeneration can take the abuse. He hurls Wolf into the masonry with enough force to crack the wall, dislodging a hidden object. Wolf reverts to human form, blinking awake. He looks up groggy and totally confused as to why this child is pulping him, asking what the hell is going on. Tiny doesn't answer. He's determined to snap the guy's spine unless he apologizes to his sister. Only then will his sister find peace. Tiny glares down at him, making it clear that today is Judgment Day. Wolf is shaking like a leaf, stuttering apologies to Tiny and begging his sister's spirit for forgiveness. But Tiny, he's stone cold. Even though he's dying to unalive this guy and drag his corpse to his sister's grave, he stops himself. She wouldn't want that trash polluting her resting place. So Tiny switches gears to detective mode. He leans in with a dark threat. For every question ignored, Wolf catches a beatdown. Suddenly, something on the floor catches Tiny's eye. A mana rock. He definitely doesn't recall seeing that loot in his past life. He grabs it and instantly a jolt of dark energy zaps him. It's like a glitch in the Matrix. He sees a vision of a silver werebeast chained up and roaring inside the stone. His eyes go wide. He recognizes this. Flashback to his elf companion, showing him the spirit beasts. These legendary creatures soak up natural mana for centuries, usually evolving in the process. They're super rare and basically exclusive to Elvenheim. He knew the lore back then, especially after seeing a spirit stone, the pure concentrated essence of a spirit. Looking at the rock now, he's baffled. How did a low-tier thug like Wolf get his hands on S-tier loot? And worse, this spirit rock is corrupted with nasty demonic energy. Tiny doesn't hesitate, he shatters the dark chains binding the beast. Instant feedback. The beast's memories flood Tiny's brain like a download. He sees a silver wolf cornered by shadowy figures. These creeps blast it with dark magic from all angles. Once the majestic beast is down, they stab it with cursed daggers to rip out its spirit stone. Then the horror show, they hand the stone to a random kid. The kid absorbs it and morphs into wolf. It clicks. This is a twisted science experiment to manufacture artificial werebeasts from humans. That explains everything. Wolf couldn't fully sync with the stone, which is why he never went full silver beast mode. The spirit of the silver wolf steps up, growling, ready to tear human wolf to shreds. Tiny blocks him. Hold up. He tells the spirit he wants to make Wolf's suffering last way longer. To his surprise, the wolf actually seems to understand him. Tiny recalls Astina telling him that humans with pure souls and high mana pools can become spirit mages. She said kids usually have the best shot at it. Since Tiny is physically a kid again, maybe he qualifies. Though let's be real, his soul is far from pure. The spirit beast cuts in, explaining the connection mentally. When Tiny smashed the chains, his mana filled the cracks in the stone, creating a psychic bridge between them. Tiny cuts to the chase. Can we form a contract? The spirit beast nods instantly and extends a paw. Tiny is hyped. This is a game changer. Unlike standard magic, spirits don't need constant micromanaging. They're autonomous partners who just sip on the summoner's mana supply. And the best part, they level up alongside their mage. No wonder Astina was the MVP of the 10 Knights back in the day. The beast has one condition: it wants blood. It wants revenge. Tiny grins. Because he was already planning to wipe out those dark forces anyway. Their goals align perfectly. Contract sealed. Now the partner needs a name. Tiny dubs him Walong. A cheeky play on Moonwolf. Now for the million-dollar question. Who is puppeteering Wolf from the shadows? Based on that vile energy, Tiny is betting everything on the forces of darkness. Specifically, the demon followers fanatics who worship Hellspawn instead of gods. Before the Beast Lord's army showed up, these cultists were the main villains, wreaking havoc. Tiny missed the intel last timeline because he was stuck dungeon crawling. He kicks Wolf awake. Did the demon followers give you the stone? Wolf is zoned out, so Tiny calls in backup. Walong lets out a soul-shaking roar that snaps Wolf back to reality. Tiny repeats the question, demanding coordinates and plans. Wolf just starts laughing like a maniac. He sneers, saying he's just a lab rat to them, and Tiny has no idea who he's messing with. But the second he tries to spill the tea on their power, splat. His head detonates like a melon. Tiny wipes off the gore. It was a silence curse triggered to keep him quiet. He remembers Wolf's threat from the past life about people hunting him down. Back then, Tiny thought he meant his street gang. But when he investigated, those goons didn't even know Wolf was a monster. This runs deep. Dead end for now. He turns his attention to a suspicious crack in the wall. What's behind door number 1? He picks up Wolf's headless corpse and hurls it at the wall like a battering ram. The structure crumbles, revealing a hidden safe. Tiny files this intel away. He'll leak the location to Esgard later. He calls Esgard an old companion, then corrects himself. Esgard is a future companion. Time travel is weird. He cracks the safe. It's loaded with treasure, but he ignores the gold. He grabs the real prize, the ring of Valentia's seal. That ring is his golden ticket to Esgard. It was a gift from Chloe herself, a literal lifeline she told him to use if he ever needed to find her. She promised she'd have his back. And she dropped a heavy hint back then, implying he already figured out her true identity. Tiny isn't oblivious. He knows every soul in the Asran Empire recognizes her as Chloe von Valentia. She's Esgard's youngest. Famous for her saint-like vibes and dubbed the Angel of Valentia ever since her sweet 16. She went on a tour through the lands. It's a Valentia tradition once the kids hit adulthood. They hit up every temple in the territory, dropping flowers and making sure the people know their names. That's exactly when their paths crossed, right in the grime of the Invader District, at the Files estate, sitting on the edge of the Duke's turf. In the last timeline, his revenge game was too slow. He missed the window to cash in that favor. The ring went unused. But this time, the script is flipped. He's using it to lock down a meeting with Esgard. But right now, he senses a new player entering the game. Tiny called it. A knight rolls up on the crime scene, scanning the chaos. He deduces the culprit has to be a mana user. You don't just grab a grown man by the leg and ragdoll him without some supernatural juice. But a child doing this, he's not buying it. When the thugs swear it was a kid, he assumes they're hallucinating, accusing them of being high on something to cook up a story like that. He boots one of them for being useless. This is Sir Ram, captain of the Files estate guards. He's only here to shake Wolf down for more hush money, but his extortion plans hit a wall. When Tiny steps onto the staircase, Ram barks at him, demanding to know if he's the one who wrecked the place. Tiny owns it without flinching. Ram starts fuming at the audacity, but Tiny cuts him deep. He only beat up a nobody. Like Wolf. Surely a high-ranking knight like Ram has better things to do than worry about peasant squabbles. He drops a dry comment that Ram must be here because he's on Wolf's payroll. That hits a nerve. The captain snaps into a blind rage, flaring his mana to strike, but his little light show only earns more scorn. As Tiny realizes, this guy hasn't even unlocked the second stage of mana yet. Before Ram can connect, Tiny slaps his hand aside like a fly. Realizing he doesn't even need to go full throttle to handle this clown, Tiny rushes in, prepping a knee strike to the gut. But the enemy blocks it. Ram admits the kid has power, shoving him back. Tiny resets. He's not trying to kill, just showing enough strength to force a negotiation. He can't afford a war with the Lord just yet. He flips backward, creating distance. Ram has an army behind him, so Tiny needs to make him stand down. Ram is getting ticked off that he can't land a hit. He reaches for his blade but freezes cold when he sees Wolong looming behind Tiny. Tiny watches the fear creep onto Ram's face. Seeing a spirit beast in the slums is basically impossible. Tiny skips the small talk. He knows Ram only cares about the bag, so he offers to match Wolf's bribe. Ram can't wrap his head around a kid having that kind of cash. Assuming Tiny is actually some ancient mage using illusion magic. Tiny plays along, claiming he's a big deal in these streets. Ram tries to hustle him, lying that Wolf paid him 5 platinum coins, and dares Tiny to match it. Tiny doesn't bite. He calculates. Wolf probably paid him 1 platinum, so he offers 1.5. Ram looks ready to explode at the lowball, but before he can threaten him, Wolong lets out a roar that paralyzes him. Tiny calmly puts Ram's life on the line, if he doesn't take the deal. Ram slowly sheathes his sword. He never expected a child to checkmate him like this. Tiny demands a final answer. Ram folds, saying he expects the payment by the end of the month. The surviving thugs beg him not to abandon them, but Ram backhands one aside in frustration. Tiny tosses the coins to the captain. He tells Ram to set up a sit-down with the Lord so he can officially claim the invader district. Ram agrees to relay the message, but warns Tiny that if the money stops flowing, the Lord's wrath will be waiting. Once the night is gone, Tiny haughtily wonders if he'll even live long enough to see that day. He pivots to the thugs trying to slink away. He commands them to round up every woman, beggar, and child in the district. The deadline is strict. If they are even a minute late, bodies start dropping for every minute wasted. If they try to bolt, the spirit beast will hunt them down. They have exactly 1 hour. Terrified, the mob scrambles to follow orders. If this plays out right, Tiny will be done with this hellhole in a week. Then it's Esgard time. An hour later, the trembling goons herd everyone inside. Emma is in the crowd, looking panicked when she sees him, her eyes locking on his bloodied knuckles. He clarifies, it's not his blood, it belongs to Wolf. He reveals Wolf's lifeless body, and announces the boss is history. Panic sets in. Wolf was the Lord's guy. The crowd is terrified the Lord will come for them now. Someone shouts that deceiving a noble is a crime. Tiny nods. Exactly. He begins to explain that the Duke of Valentia, he knows the Lord is a dirty liar. Now, armed with receipts, he's ready to blow the lid off the Duke's entire corrupt operation. Fast forward a few days, 2 guards are killing time, chewing the fat about Ram vanishing into thin air while on probation. They shrug off the chaos in the invader district as just another turf war between lowlifes, nothing to lose sleep over. Whispers of a phantom or a giant wolf are floating around, but they ain't buying it. Thugs love a tall tale. Plus, with Wolf 6 feet under and his vault empty, who cares? Ram, on the other hand, took the fall for fumbling the new boss situation and paid the price. Since the crackdown, the invader district is a ghost town. Shutters down, lights out, and merchants screaming about lost profits. Watching his cash cow wither away, the Lord is losing his cool. Desperate, he demands a sit-down with this mysterious new kingpin. Meanwhile, our main man is right there in the shadows, eavesdropping on the guards' little gossip session. That same day, Tiny started plotting the endgame, what happens to the Lord of Files, when Esgard finds out about his dirty laundry. In his past life, he secured the ledgers but sat on them thinking all nobles were equally trash. Back then, he just handed over half of Wolf's stash and the books, straight to the Lord just to bail out a few buddies. He was green, naive, and played right into their hands. Only after earning his stripes as a knight did he learn the pecking order, there's always a bigger fish in the noble pond. Flashback to the hideout. He faced Emma, dropping the heavy news that the nightmare is over. They're finally free from Wolf's grip. Then he stepped aside, letting them take their pound of flesh. Emma didn't hesitate, delivering the first vicious kick to Wolf's lifeless body. That broke the dam. Everyone swarmed the corpse, venting years of trauma. Tiny watched, knowing that while the violence felt good, the scars ran deeper than bruises. Still, he threw open Wolf's treasury, telling them to grab whatever they could carry. Take the gold and get out of the district, he commanded. They froze, stunned that he was just handing over an entire fortune. Emma blinked, asking, "What about your cut?" He just shrugged, saying he already secured his bag. He stressed that he needed funds too, even if he hadn't fully grasped just how powerful money could be in this world yet. Then his gaze shifted to the women eyeing the gold with sudden greed. The mood dropped below freezing. Use this money for evil, or go running to the Lord, and Wulun eats you alive. One look at the spirit beast, and the fear of God was back in their eyes. Softening up, he turned to Emma. If you're leaving, find Diane. Stick together on the road. Hire muscle for protection. When she asked where he was headed, he kept it vague. He had a different path to walk. Emma hesitated, worried for the kid, but a glance at the massive Wulun reassured her. She nodded, agreeing to seek out Diane. Find me if you ever need help, she said. He thanked her, and just like that, the Files Entertainment District went dark. Back to the present. The guard wonders aloud, who is this new boss anyway? Right on cue, Tiny steps out of the shadows. Name's Tiny, he quips. The guards scoff, warning the brat to beat it before he gets in trouble near the Lord's crib. Then it clicks for the first guard. Wait, how does this random kid know the boss's name? Tiny summons his silver wolf, dropping the mic. Because I am the boss. Moments later, inside the castle, he's already bored dealing with yet another adult underestimating him. He stands toe-to-toe with Cran, the high and mighty commander of the Files Knights. Cran looks him over, sneering about his age despite Rom's warnings. Tiny fires back, staring his rude old man. Keep a guest waiting while you judge them. Bad manners. The commander sees Red barking at Tiny to learn his station. Tiny smirks. You learn your station. You answer to the Lord, and I'm the Lord's guest. Do the math. Cran wrinkles his nose. You smell like the sewer. Tiny doesn't blink. Funny, I thought that stench was coming from you. That does it. Cran rips his sword out. The butler jumps in panic in his voice. Commander, the Lord is waiting. Cran grinds his teeth, sheathing his blade and muttering an apology. He leans in hissing. Watch your mouth, kid. The Lord doesn't play games. Tiny yawns. Cran is vibrating with rage, mentally adding kill the brat to his to-do list the second the Lord gives the nod. Cran announces the arrival and the doors swing open. Tiny steps in and almost breaks character. He's shocked. Masking his surprise, Tiny drops into a flawless courtly bow. Cran's jaw drops. Where did a street rat learn noble etiquette? Tiny smiles innocently. I've been rehearsing for this moment, my lord. But internally, Tiny is reeling. In his past life, Timon was a massive drug-addicted blob. This version, surprisingly fit. This must be Timon before the drugs took over. Doesn't matter, he's still corrupt to the core. Once those ledgers hit Asgard, Timon is toast. Just need to keep him occupied. The Lord raises an eyebrow. Your respect for me seems to outweigh your respect for my commander. Tiny plays the humble servant card perfectly. How could I possibly treat a mere sword the same as the hand that wields it? Then he drops the nuke. He looks Timon dead in the eye. I want to be your knight. Timon leans forward, intrigued. Cran is staring daggers at the kid, clearly threatened but low-key respecting the hustle. Still, the math isn't mathing. He's seriously doubting Tiny is actually a child. He's betting on some dwarf or elf DNA in the mix. But when Tiny insists he's just 13, Cran looks like he just swallowed a bug, totally shook. Timon rises, cutting the tension to address the elephant in the room. Tiny obliterated his invader district revenue stream, a bold move for someone begging to be his knight. Timon demands a reason for the chaos. Tiny hits him with the ultimate curveball. I did it all for you, my lord. That shuts Timon up instantly. He doubles down, implying that while Timon's got the brains, he might be a little out of touch with how the gritty real world actually operates. Cran offers to slice Tiny's throat right there, but Tiny holds his ground. He drops the logic. Dangerous rumors were starting to leak. Word was getting to Valentino about the illicit trades and drug rings in Timon's turf. Even Cran flinches at the sound of that name. Tiny plays his ace Chloe's coming-of-age visit to the invader district. He claims he caught wind of the intel from her own escort team. He spins the narrative perfectly. He wasn't causing trouble. He was taking out the trash before it became a PR nightmare for Timon. Tiny smirks internally. He's successfully gaslighted the boss, twisting the facts even as Timon's gears turn, trying to verify the story. Timon wonders if the Asgard family is plotting a move before Chloe arrives. Cran tries to call Cap on Tiny's explanation, but Timon snaps, barking at him to back off. Cran apologizes immediately. Surprisingly, Timon actually applauds Tiny's ruthless efficiency, even if his methods were a little barbaric. Tiny bows in thanks, but the vibe shifts. Timon isn't done. The suspicion is still lingering in his eyes. He knows about the spirit wolf. His voice drops an octave as he demands to know if Tiny looted it off Wolf's corpse. The spirit stone. Our boy slipped up. He never expected Timon to know about the artifact. Suddenly, Wolong materializes right beside him. Through the wolf's spiritual sight, the invisible becomes visible. A swirling, vile, dark energy is radiating off Timon. That aura confirms it. He's a dark mage. Tiny knows the drill. Demons trade power for blood sacrifices. And judging by that double circle aura, this guy has sacrificed hundreds of corpses or dozens of living souls to get here. It clicks. Tiny flashes back to the goons who tried to snatch his sister's body. They mentioned a buyer paying top dollar for corpses. It all makes sense now. Timon is the shadowy figure bankrolling the body trade in the invader district. Wolf had a dark mage sugar daddy this whole time. Just who was that guy? Timon demands an answer, but Tiny hits him with the "I don't know what you're talking about" face. Timon snaps his fingers. Cran unsheathes his blade, locking onto Tiny. Our boy knows he can't 1v2 this squad, not at his current level anyway. But he summons his familiar regardless. Wolong manifests behind him, ready to brawl. The beast's roar freezes Cran cold, but Timon, totally unbothered. He curses Wolf's incompetence and decides he just found a replacement lab rat. Tiny realizes he's on the menu for some twisted experiments. Timon turns to Cran, asking for a stat check on the kid. Cran admits Tiny is on the verge of the second stage. Timon raises an eyebrow that puts this kid on par with a legitimate knight. Cran points out the obvious. Tiny is a straight-up prodigy for awakening mana without noble bloodlines or formal training. Timon actually looks impressed. Cran notes that while self-awakening is rare, there's more to it. Tiny's mana is incredibly refined with zero leakage. His circles are stable, implying he didn't just stumble onto this. He was trained with a secret technique. Timon demands the teacher's name. Tiny calculates quickly, telling the truth here is a one-way ticket to a grave. No one would believe a kid invented a secret technique. So he lies, claiming his parents trained him before they came to Phyllis. He spins a tale about learning breathing techniques in the cradle, only realizing their true power way later. Timon pauses, processing the data. Tiny knows he's safe, there's no way to fact-check a dead family. Timon flooded the district with refugees just to pad his wallet, making tracking anyone's history impossible. Tiny flexes, claiming his power is the only proof needed. Surprisingly, Timon actually buys it. Tiny didn't expect that to work so easily. And he's right, the other shoe is about to drop. Timon decides to call in a third-party judge and orders Tiny to stay put. He adds that offing Wolf has made things messy. Tiny's mind races. Who's the mystery guest? His eyes go wide as he realizes it might be the organization Wolf warned him about. If Timon is a dark mage, his guest is likely one too. This is absolute worst-case scenario territory. Getting caught by someone that high-level, game over. Timon snaps him out of it, asking if he's in. Tiny pledges undying loyalty instantly. Then he carefully asks if the VIP guest is a big deal. Timon nods, warning him to be on his best behavior. Tiny starts running the numbers on his survival. 3 days until Asgard audits the books and uncovers the scam. Another 3 days to mobilize the disciplinary squad plus travel time to the Phyllis estate. Total time for backup, about half a month. He just has to pray. The VIP arrives after the cavalry shows up. He asks when they're due. Timon drops the excuse smoothly. He needs to brush up on etiquette for the VIP. Then comes the bombshell. The guest arrives in just 7 days. Tiny freezes. The countdown has started. Later, he's spiraling, obsessing over this new headache. A mystery guest landing in exactly 1 week. He crunches the numbers. Option A. Ghost this place. The invader district is a ghost town now. Vanishing would be a piece of cake. Slipping past the Lord's goons isn't the hard part. The problem is life on the run. Being a fugitive creates massive drama for the endgame, specifically his future sit-down with Asgard. He needs that meeting to be clean, zero friction. Plus, let's be real, running away burns him up inside. His ego won't let him bail. He knows he's underleveled, but he's betting he can find a cheat code to win. Option B, stand his ground. Since the clock is ticking down 7 days, the strategy hinges on who this mystery VIP actually is. Is it some government suit? Nah. He rewinds Timon's words, letting them see for themselves. That phrasing is sus. He analyzes the vibe and realizes, this visitor can't be a high-tier noble. The arrival is too low-key, too quiet. This screams shady underworld deal. Tiny hatches a scheme, Operation Chaos. He needs to turn Phillies upside down before the guest steps foot inside. A massive, viral-worthy scene that draws way too much heat. Make it messy enough, and the guest might flake or reschedule. It's a Hail Mary, but it's his only shot. The catch. He needs to be strong enough to body heavy hitters like Timon and Cran if things go south. He pauses the strategy session because his stomach sounds like a dying beast. All that brain power burned serious calories. Cut to the mess hall, everyone is shook. They're watching Tiny inhale food like a vacuum. Does the kid have dwarf DNA? They whisper, eyeing the mountain of plates. Dwarves eat like orcs after all. Unbothered by the audience, our boy keeps feasting. The monobody synchronization is locked in. Now his physical form is just a furnace demanding fuel to level up. No need for spirit herbs or secret elixirs, just raw calories. But the feast gets interrupted by a total buzzkill. Sir Grant. The guy marches over to lecture him on table manners. Tiny hits him with a casual, "You good bro." The knight barks about respecting elders. Please. Tiny isn't bowing down to some bully who came over just to pick a fight with a minor. He doubles down, keeping his cool, and calling the guy a moron. That snaps Grant's patience. The knight winds up a punch, furious at the disrespect. Gren steps in, trying to play peacemaker. Chill out, he's just a kid. Suddenly, Cran materializes behind them. Let them fight, he orders Gren. Tiny smirks. He reads the room instantly. The commander wants a live demo of his skills. Tiny stands up, ready to put on a show. He knows Timon is pulling the strings from the shadows. Outside, Sir Grant is foaming at the mouth, ready to school the boy. Tiny points out the obvious, "I'm unarmed, old man." "You sure about this?" The knight just chuckles darkly. "Grab a sword," Grant sneers, promising a quick end. "Or are you getting cold feet?" Tiny answers with his foot cracked to the ankle. Grant stumbles, balance wrecked. The knight tries to recover, throwing a wild punch, but Tiny ducks effortlessly. He channels mana into his leg. And bam, another precision kick to the shin. Grant grunts. He can't process that Tiny is packing this much heat. At the first stage, the knight's legs are screaming, but his pride won't let him drop. Tiny notes the guy's stubbornness. Blind with rage, Grant charges again. Tiny weaves out of range, then goes full parkour. He leaps up, perching right on Grant's shoulder like a hawk, his hands glowing with mana clamp onto the knight's face. "Relax," he taunts. "I'm not gonna end you." Slam. He drives the knight into the dirt. "Knights ain't special," he spits. The crowd is dead silent. Then the whispers explode. A kid just dismantled a knight. Cran's eyes narrow. He's intrigued. Checkmate. This was Tiny's play all along. Wreck a knight in public, no summons needed, just raw skill. He proved his value. He knows the Lord won't execute a prodigy with this kind of potential. The plan worked. But suddenly a sharp backlash shoots through his frame. He wobbles. He fights to stay standing, wondering if he redlined his engine. He had to dump his entire mana reserve to catch Grant off guard. It was the only way to drop a tank, who out-leveled him so hard. In his past life, a stunt like that would have crippled him for days, because physical recovery lagged behind mana regen. It was always a slow grind. But with the body sync complete, that lag is gone. He's recharging fast. Training is about to get a whole lot easier. He's hungry for more power. Cut to later, dinner with the Lord. The intel drops. Asgard has made his move. At the table, Timon finally eats humble pie. "I judged you too fast," he admits. Tiny smiles. "Thanks for believing in the talent." The maid slides a gourmet plate onto the table. Timon breaks it down, premium veal from a young calf. It's a literal feast, but Tiny stares at it. A heavy steak first thing in the morning. Seriously. Timon raises an eyebrow. He figured the kid burned a ton of calories overpowering that night yesterday. Tiny waves it off, playing it cool. Grant just slipped. "I got lucky." Timon buys the humble act, then sighs. "It's a shame. A raw talent like you wasted without a master to train you." Tiny doesn't miss a beat. The legends, most of them got strong on their own. Timon leans in, intrigued. He's analyzing everything Tiny knows, history, and has perfect table manners. The math isn't mathing. Tiny keeps his poker face. He can't exactly admit he learned all this in his past life as a grown adult. Timon's eyes narrow. He's profiling Tiny as a hidden noble. But black hair and dark eyes, that phenotype is super rare in this empire. Unless he's from that forbidden region. Tiny acts confused, but internally Timon is absolutely buzzing. He just found a potential goldmine. Tiny ignores Timon's internal monologue. Then Timon drops a bomb. He's already reported Tiny's potential. Apparently the big boss upstairs is very interested in Tiny's rapid leveling. Tiny keeps playing dumb, but in his head he's pitying Timon. The guy's future is just drug addiction and ruin. Right now, Timon is a double-circle dark mage. But when the demons come to collect, he's toast. Timon keeps yapping, teasing that Tiny is going to be a major asset to this powerful, mysterious figure. Tiny fakes a grateful smile. "Wow, thanks." Later he hits the training grounds. Hard. He knows the boss is dangerous, but first things first, he needs to crush Timon and the commander. The power scaling is clear. Timon is Circle 2, Jean is Stage 2, Cran is the wild card, but probably on the same tier since mana users and physical fighters level up similarly. In his past life, Tiny blew past Stage 2. Now he has to speedrun that progress in 6 days. Day 3. He's compressing his muscle density, focusing on flexibility. His agility is already peaking. Rebuilding his foundation makes him realize how messy his last build was. Back then, he was a total meathead, bulking up thinking mass equaled power. Big mistake. Too much muscle mass threw off his mana balance and slowed him down. He's not repeating that failure. Being huge means nothing if you can't move. Suddenly, soldiers nearby gasp and scramble away. After watching him wreck Grant, they want zero smoke. Tiny smirks. Perfect. For 3 days, he just eats trains and enjoys the silence. The isolation is a vibe. Then Cran shows up to drag him to the armory. Timon wants him geared up. Tiny glances at the sword on Cran's hip and grins. Time for some loot. Outside the armory, Cran gives his usual, "Be grateful to the Lord" lecture. Whatever, dude. Inside, it's a bust. The armor is way too big for his kid frame, and 0 warhammers or maces. Basically, everything here is trash. Tiny decides to push Cran's buttons. "Maybe I'll find a blade like yours in this pile," Cran sneers. "In your dreams, kid." He taps his hilt. "This is Grace. Masterpiece by Rogers. You're not worthy to hold it." Cran looks at him with pure contempt. Tiny stares back, wondering how much blood was spilled to forge that thing. Then he strikes. "I'm more talented than you. I'd actually do that sword justice." That snaps Cran's patience. He roars so loud the guards outside jump. Tiny locks eyes with him. Let's bet on it. He grabs a rusty sword. Winner takes all. If I lose, you can kill me. Cran loses his mind and draws his blade. Outside, the guards hear Tiny screaming, "No, please stop." Then, silence. The door creaks open. Tiny stumbles out looking absolutely battered. The guards instantly turn on Cran. He beat up a kid. Whispers start flying. Cran's jealous because the kid might take the commander spot. Even the maid is disgusted. They let the victim pass. Tiny limps by the other maids, keeping up the act. Cran did this. They rush to comfort him. Meanwhile, Timon is sipping wine, asking about dark rituals. The butler slides in to announce everything is set. Timon narrows his eyes, asking if Wolf's crew is on the chopping block again, and his subordinate gives a cold, confirming nod. Timon replays the mental tape of Tiny obliterating that invader, pure, raw power. He waves his servant off his mind, completely locked on the kid's potential. He doesn't know what the kid's angle is, but he'll exploit him regardless. Just gotta wait for the VIP guest to roll in and verify Tiny's blue blood. But here's the snag. What if his gut is wrong? If Tiny isn't from that elite family, Timon is toast. His superiors will be absolutely livid about the Wolf mess. As Wolf's supervisor, both Timon and the kid would be staring down the barrel of a brutal execution. He shakes off the panic, running the stats on Tiny again. It's all in the details, from the flawless table etiquette to the sheer force needed to fold a night like laundry. No random peasant has that kind of juice. I don't care how talented they are. Tiny has to be from that prestigious lineage. The final puzzle piece, that pitch black hair and those dark abyssal eyes. Smug with his deduction, he hits the pillow, dreaming of the guest's arrival. Suddenly, a magical tripwire snaps in his brain. Alarm bells. He shoots up furious, ready to roast whoever woke him. But before he can blink, he sees Tiny lunging, burying Cran's sword deep into his chest. Lights out. No final words, just dead. Tiny ghosts the scene immediately. Fast forward to morning, the maid walks in to wake Timon and lets out a blood-curdling scream. Ram rushes in to investigate the chaos and freezes. He's shook. Timon's corpse reveals the twisted truth: the guy was a dark mage. The priest confirmed it before dipping, sensing that nasty necrotic energy. They've got to flag this to the holy parish as soon as possible. Gren chimes in. The royal investigation team is already en route. Meanwhile, everyone's staring at the body. It looks like he's been decomposing for weeks, a side effect of dark magic rotting you from the inside out. Gren wonders what drove Timon to the dark side. Not that it matters now. The guy was already corrupt to the core, and he's dead. Case closed on the why. The real issue, the murder weapon sticking out of him, belongs to the commander. Ram is in total denial, refusing to believe it. Later, the guards start whispering, bringing up the beef Cran had with Tiny ever since the kid got on the Lord's VIP list. Word on the street was Tiny might snag the commander spot, which had Cran foaming at the mouth with rage. Still murdering the Lord over a promotion seems wild. The million-dollar question remains: where on earth is Cran? Gren takes charge, barking orders to start the manhunt. They grill the staff and guards about the previous day's events. The testimony is unanimous. Everyone saw Cran dragging Tiny to the armory and beating the living daylights out of him. Hearing that, Gren demands a face-to-face with the kid. When questioned, Tiny sticks to the script, same story as the witnesses. Cran dragged him to the armory and started throwing hands. Gren's not buying the innocent act, though, because after that beatdown, Cran vanished into thin air. They toss the warehouse upside down and come up empty. Gren presses hard, demanding to know if Tiny laid eyes on the commander after the assault. Gren keeps digging, but Tiny plays dumb, hasn't seen him. Gren asks for a motive, and Tiny drops the bomb. Cran was dead set against him, becoming the next leader. That clicks. Gren relaxes, realizing the kid's story lines up perfectly with the eyewitness gossip. Then with wide, innocent eyes, Tiny asks about his future now that his patron is dead. Gren orders him to swing by his office tomorrow. Once he's clear, Tiny's mask drops. He's racking his brain about Gren. Why doesn't he remember this guy from the first timeline, when he slaughtered the Lord's corrupted knights? Did he just forget him? Nah, impossible. He remembers the face of every single soldier he pummeled. Gren is an anomaly, and since he wants a meeting tomorrow, Tiny decides to keep his guard up. Next morning, plot twist. Gren is actually super chill. He hands over a mercenary ID card and a stack of cash. As a commoner, this is the golden ticket. You can't cross territory lines unless you're a knight or a merc, so this is freedom. Gren's putting his name on the line for him. When Tiny asks why the charity Gren gets real talent like Tiny's is wasted in a dump like this, he needs to chase greatness. Tiny starts connecting the dots, wondering if Gren is projecting his own desires. That explains the memory gap. Gren must have ditched this place early, in the previous timeline too. Tiny takes the loot with a nod. He was planning to bounce anyway before the Imperial investigation squad rolls up. Once the feds find out Timon was a dark mage, that VIP guest will ghost, which means Esgard won't show up either. Better to go hunt Esgard down personally. Gren wraps it up with a smirk, saying he expects Tiny to remember the name Gren when he's famous. He pauses, actually surprised, when our boy stops to ask, "Wait, what's your name again?" Gren introduces himself properly. Tiny smirks back, replying that he hopes Gren remembers his name when he makes it big. With that mic drop, he walks out. Now the weight of the entire estate falls on Gren to step up as commander in the power vacuum. But honestly, the guy is in a nightmare scenario, trying to solve a murder and find a missing commander. Step 1. Hire a specialist mage to track the magic signature. Guilt weighs heavy on Tiny regarding Cran, but he's got zero time to mope. He heads to the guild, plotting to snag a horse and flash his mercenary card. But before he can drop the coin, Walling materializes, blocking his path and offering his own back as a ride. Tiny hesitates, noting that riding a wolf is a one-way ticket to motion sickness hell. He flashes back to his orc buddy roasting humans, claiming they're too weak to ride dire wolves without puking their guts out. Legend says only orcs have the equilibrium to handle that chaotic movement, but Walling isn't taking no for an answer, so Tiny caves. Surprisingly, the wolf's physical form feels solid, a total unit. Usually spirit beasts just mirror their living size, but their physical bulk actually scales with the mage's mana tier. Then it clicks. He needs to Bluetooth his soul to Walling to sync their senses. He focuses, triggering his second stage. Spirit Mage powers to lock in the connection. Instantly, Walling's frame shifts. It reminds him of Astina's lesson. High-tier mages don't just summon, they upgrade their familiars. Walling's fur bristles with new armor-like toughness, a walking tank fueled by Tiny's mana. Without warning, Walling launches forward, tearing through the wind. With the Soul Link active, Tiny's reality expands to 4K resolution. He feels every muscle twitch sees through the wolf's eyes and catches sense miles away. This speedrun to Valentino is exactly what he needs. It's the key to reaching distant zones later, specifically Karun Ground Zero for the first apocalypse. In his previous timeline, disasters cascaded across the map like dominoes, signaling the demon army's invasion. Those catastrophes bled the human military dry before the war even started. The catalyst, the sacred relic in Karun, vanishing into thin air. He has to intercept that event. The 7 sacred relics are basically divine firewalls, gifted by the goddess to keep humanity from going extinct. Once Karun's relic fell, the rest were picked off one by one. Not this time. Tiny is rewriting the script. But first, he needs to power level so he can solo the demon army if necessary. Plan A, meet Esgard, then blitz to Karun. Meanwhile, back at the invader estate, the rumor mill is on fire, regarding the Imperial Army's sudden drop-in. Everyone's whispering about Timon's assassination and the bombshell that he was a dark mage. Cut to the mansion gate, a mysterious woman steps out of the shadows. The guards try to flex their authority, asking for ID, but snap, she drops them instantly with a finger click. She waltzes in and spots Gren. He draws his weapon, but another finger snap bypasses his defenses, entrancing him. She demands the tea on the Lord's murder, and Gren sings like a canary, spilling every detail. She presses for the body's location. Gren robotically replies that the Imperial investigation team had them seal it in a casket in the bedroom. She commands Gren to take a 1-hour power nap. 60 minutes later, Gren jolts awake, disoriented. His memory is wiped clean, assuming he just passed out from stress. Suddenly, a guard bursts in, hyperventilating. Timon's corpse is gone. Gren swears loudly. That body was their only evidence to decode the dark magic plot, and now it's ghosted. Smash cut to the forest outside the Phillies' estate. The mystery woman is examining Kron's sword like a crime scene investigator. She senses the owner's life force is extinguished. The math is simple. The guy who slaughtered the wolves is Tiny. Now he's got a target on his back for wrecking her organization's scheme. Meanwhile, our MC strolls through Lucentia's western gate. The road to Valentino is packed. Things are chill for now, but his gamer instincts tell him that mystery villain is closing in. He needs a gear upgrade stat. He checks his inventory, 2 gold coins. Shout out to Gren for the cash, but in this economy, that buys nothing. Suddenly 2 NPCs or thugs block his path, demanding a donation. One guy threatens him, suggesting he hand it over. While he's still in a good mood, Tiny doesn't even flinch. He just looks them dead in the eye and asks if they have any cash. Flashback time. In his past life, Tiny was the underworld king. The criminal code was simple. If you see his shadow, you vanish or you die. He recalls a memory of wiping out a gang, while a priest nagged him about staining his soul with so much bloodshed. The priest begged for mercy to cleanse his guilt. Tiny's clapback. He wasn't killing people. He was just taking out the trash. Back to reality. The 2 Lupus family goons are on the ground. The crowd is shook. Those guys are supposed to be night level strong. Tiny yawns, calling them fodder. Triggered, the thugs rush him, but Tiny yeets his coin pouch right into their faces, causing a slapstick collision. He goes airborne, delivering a double kick. He proceeds to loot their pockets while they groan, threatening that their boss is going to hunt him down. But Tiny couldn't care less. He is grinning ear to ear, weighing a pouch heavy with their gold coins. Flush with cash, he hits the smithy for an upgrade. He eyes a piece of armor the merchant swears is crafted from the hide of a southern iron bull. Supposedly, that tough leather can bounce arrows right off. Tiny admits the gear is top tier, but then, street chatter catches his ear, whispers about a certain noblewoman. He presses the shopkeep for details. The merchant drops the intel. Lady Valencia herself is hitting the streets for a personal patrol today. Memories flood back. Irina gave him love, sure, but Chloe gave him a reason to live. Things ended tragically with Irina, so he is desperate for Chloe's validation. If she accepts him, it proves he is honoring Irina's legacy correctly. In his past life, he was a hulking monster by the time they finally met, and she didn't have a clue who he was. But this timeline is different. It hasn't been that long. She has to know him. Fueled by adrenaline, he sprints ahead, determined to secure an audience with Esgard. Meanwhile, Chloe is stuck on the world's most boring tour with Edmund von Lucent, the Count's heir. He is flexing about the city, claiming it is the central region's crown jewel. He drags her to every tourist trap, droning on with endless boring trivia. Suddenly, she flips the script. "Take me to the slums," she demands. Edmund looks like he just swallowed a bug. She fires back that slum dwellers are citizens too. Reluctantly, the nervous noble caves to her request. As he leads the way, she mentally rolls her eyes. Why is simple empathy so shocking to these people? Edmund is an heir. Feeling responsible for his subjects should be day one stuff. Her father drilled it into her, lift up the working class and the kingdom thrives. Was that lesson unique to her family? She wants to shatter these social barriers, but she knows the clock is ticking. Marriage means losing her voice and freedom. Ideally, she would join the temple. The priests are practically begging to recruit her. But that would break her dad's heart. He is terrified of her ending up alone for the rest of her life. Then she spots him. Tiny tries to close the distance, but guards block his path. Even Edmund is baffled by the kid's stealth. Tiny flashes the ring, shouting that she gave it to him. He drops to a knee, reciting the very promise she made him about finding her. "I found you," he says, thanking her right then and there. Chloe stares at the ring. She knows it. But the guy wearing it, total stranger. She gave that ring to a slum kid, not this well-dressed warrior. The math isn't mathing for her. Tiny looks crushed. Meanwhile, the guards prep their spears to skewer him. Vivian, her personal knight, steps in with a lethal glare. Tiny curses himself he moved too fast. Still, he doubles down. "I am that boy." Chloe looks like she is seeing a ghost. Tiny anticipated this. He has had a massive glow-up. He points to his jet black hair, reminding her he is the only one in the duchy with those dark locks. Chloe nods slowly. The logic holds up, but she can't reconcile the image. That kid was frail and stuttered. This guy is not. Truth is, the wolf spirit used to stunt his growth for better begging sympathy. But Tiny remembers Chloe's weakness. She is a sucker for cute things. Time for the ace in the hole. He summons Walling in his small, adorable form. Instant win. She is melting over the fluff ball. Vivian, however, screams that it is a dangerous spirit. Chloe counters, "Only a pure heart can bond with a spirit." Vivian concedes, but keeps her hand on her sword. A kid with a weapon and a spirit beast. That is a walking red flag. Chloe asks the creature's name. Tiny introduces Walling, explaining it translates to Moonlight Wolf in an Eastern dialect. The knight is floored he speaks Eastern. Chloe beams at the poetic name. She still can't believe the transformation in just 2 months. He looks maybe 10, but she recalls his name meant Tiny. He corrects the record. "I am 13. My name is Tiny. Mana Awakening hit my growth spurt hard," he adds. Finally, the puzzle pieces click for Chloe. Vivian isn't buying it. She demands to know if he is mixed blood. Chloe tries to defend him, but Vivian shuts her down. Security comes first. Edmund chimes in, suggesting they lock the kid up for interrogation. Tiny ignores the peanut gallery. He doesn't need their trust. He looks Chloe dead in the eye, invoking her vow to help him. She nods, remembering her word. "What do you desire?" she asks. His answer is cold. "I want to see Esgard." Chaos erupts. The guards and Vivian are ready to take his head off for such insolence. Tiny doesn't flinch. He just smirks at them. "Be real. Do you actually think I could scratch a monster like Esgard?" After all, Esgard isn't just a knight. He is a living legend, one of the top 7 powerhouses on the continent, capable of unleashing aura that could level a city. Chloe flashes a humble smile, noting that her father would actually be mortified by the Grand Swordmaster title. Tiny, however, starts sweating bullets as the realization hits him like a truck. In this specific timeline, Esgard hasn't leveled up to Swordmaster status yet. He just exposed future intel. She waves off his slip-up, insisting the legendary title fits her father's vibe perfectly regardless. The guards are absolutely beaming with pride, hearing their leader hype them up. Tiny clocks the morale boost and decides to pivot, admitting he needs FaceTime with Esgard. He needs to drop some intel regarding the file's disaster, considering he was right in the middle of that chaos. Later, Chloe and Vivian are debriefing. They go over the story Tiny fed to Vivian about the incident. Chloe narrows her eyes. Her gut tells her the little guard is holding back cards. Vivian swears she is relaying the facts exactly as Tiny spilled them. Timon was a dark mage, but he was just a puppet for a bigger villain. Chloe nods, agreeing this testimony could be the breadcrumb trail to the true mastermind. But honestly, she is mostly using this as a solid excuse to head home. Since Tiny wants to meet her dad, it is the perfect cover. Vivian, however, points out that Wolang gives off dangerous energy, especially since he is clinging to Chloe. Chloe laughs off the paranoia, arguing that something so small and adorable couldn't possibly hurt a fly. Vivian has to admit the creature is cute, but she decides to keep her guard up. Suddenly, Chloe realizes the room is too quiet. Tiny is missing. Vivian reports he was intercepted by Edmund. Apparently, the noble claimed he had urgent business to settle with the boy. Chloe frowns, wondering what kind of business a noble would have with a rookie guard. Just then, Wolong vanishes into thin air from her lap. Cut to Edmund, who is dragging Tiny away under the false pretense of having intel on the dark mage. But once they are alone, he drops the act and starts lecturing Tiny about social hierarchy. Tiny cuts the noise and demands the truth. He is only here for the mage info. Edmund sneers, revealing he knows absolutely zero about any dark mages. It was just bait to get Tiny isolated. He wants to teach the commoner some manners. Edmund raises his hand to deliver a humiliating slap, but Tiny catches his wrist in midair. Edmund is fuming at the audacity, but his anger turns to panic when Tiny crushes his hand, locking him in an iron grip he can't break. Edmund squeals, threatening to snitch to Chloe about this disrespect. Tiny plays the innocent card, pretending he doesn't even know what a noble is. He releases the hand and tells Edmund to take his best shot, challenging him to show if he actually has a backbone. Tiny suspects this guy has backup waiting in the wings. Edmund grins, accepts the challenge, and signals for Tiny to follow him. Back at the mansion, Vivian is already sprinting out the door. The second Wolong vanished, she knew something was wrong. That spirit can't exist too far from its master, meaning Edmund has taken Tiny way off the grid. She rushes forward, praying she can intervene before things get ugly. Meanwhile, Edmund is wearing a smug grin, thinking he is about to humble this kid permanently. Tiny, on the other hand, looks like he is dying of boredom. Edmund leads him straight into the Lupus family headquarters. The thugs spot Edmund instantly, and look confused by the sudden visit. They assume he is there to collect the illegal bribes they prepared for him. Tiny looks around the room totally unimpressed by this low-level criminal den. Edmund ignores the bribes. He wants the gang to jump the boy. The goons pause, completely baffled that their VIP wants them to beat up a literal child. Lupus the boss earns a sharp slap across the face from Edmund for questioning orders. Getting the message, Lupus signals his crew to take the trash out. But here is the kicker. These are the same guys Tiny thrashed recently. The moment they recognize his face, their blood runs cold. Lupus is losing his mind, seeing his crew frozen in terror, and screams at them to attack. They immediately protest, reminding the boss that this is the monster who wrecked them before. They back off, leaving Lupus to handle the kids solo. Lupus grits his teeth and prepares to strike, while Edmund watches with glee, expecting a show. But to his horror, Lupus's attack is parried effortlessly. A split second later, Tiny slams Lupus backward with such force that he creates a crater in the floor. Edmund's confidence shatters instantly, and he frantically screams for Lupus to defend him. Tiny steps forward, daring the broken boss to try and save his patron. In the next heartbeat, the pressure is too much. Both men faint from sheer terror. Tiny sighs, disappointed that the boss was such a glass cannon. With a smirk, he pivots toward the minions, who are shaking like leaves. A bit later, Vivian kicks the door down, ready for a fight. She stops dead, stunned by the carnage in front of her, and the pathetic state of Edmund on the floor. Tiny casually looks up and asks what she is doing there. Vivian stammers that she came on Chloe's orders. She notices a book in his hand. He tosses it to her, explaining it is the ledger proving Edmund's dirty bribes. He drops the bomb. This crew is running a human trafficking ring. He is certain that with Vivian holding the receipts, Edmund is finished. The poor girl looks at him with pity, wondering what kind of brutal life forced a child to be this hardened. The next day, the verdict drops. Edmund is stripped of his status and exiled from the territory. The investigation proved he had been running a trafficking operation, alongside the Lupus gang for ages. The Count had to banish his own son to save the family's reputation. Vivian apologizes to Tiny for the drama. Chloe asks why she is apologizing when she did the right thing, and Tiny adds that he isn't losing any sleep over it. The room fills with Chloe's laughter. She doubles down, insisting that a fancy title is no get-out-of-jail-free card, actions have consequences, period. That is the code her father drilled into her. But Vivian is totally lost. Why is Chloe looking at her like she just failed a test? Chloe drops the truth bomb. She is disappointed because Vivian let Edmund off the hook without a proper beatdown. Finally, the dynamic makes sense to Tiny. You have Chloe, the Esgard family's golden child, and Vivian, a sword genius, definitely an odd couple. They have been glued to each other's sides forever. It is hilarious to Tiny watching Chloe bossing everyone around like the big sister, when she is technically the baby of the group. Catching his stare, Chloe demands to know what is on his mind. He keeps it real. Edmund used his nobility as a shield, so he deserved to get humbled status be damned. Hearing a kid talk that heavy makes Vivian side-eye him again. Is this really just a child? Then Chloe shifts gears to playtime with Walling. She even lazy names the spirit Wool because pronouncing his full name is apparently too much effort for her highness. Seeing her guard down, Tiny shoots his shot. Did she ever suspect him? Chloe reveals she already had the tea on him dismantling the Wolf organization and liberating their victims. Plus, he just exposed Edmund. She is just relieved. Her gut instinct to trust him was right. But Chloe hits him with a warning. No more going rogue. Next time fill her in first. He agrees to the terms without hesitation. 3 days into their road trip, the carriage screeches to a halt. The driver announces they have a hitchhiker, an elf, asking to tag along. This completely catches them off guard. The newcomer introduces herself as Irina, claiming to serve the World Tree. The girls are instantly mesmerized by her ethereal vibes and grace. However, our boy sees right through the glamour. Irina is actually a 5-circle dark mage. In this lore, elves descend from fairies and stick to Elfenheim way out west. Spotting one in the central region is like finding a unicorn in the Azran Empire. Beyond being drop-dead, gorgeous elves are famous for being pacifists with hearts of gold. That is why Tiny is freaking out. An elf who doubles as a 5-circle dark mage. That math does not add up. Irina feeds Chloe a story about passing through Valentino territory to reach the Werebeast Kingdom up north. She asks if that destination creeps them out, considering the Empire and the Werebeasts possess serious beef with each other. Chloe waves off the danger. She is more curious about why Irina is trekking so far. Irina claims it is part of her training arc. Chloe immediately assumes she is grinding to become an elite warrior. Irina plays along, but her eyes are glued to the spirit. Chloe clarifies that Walling is actually Tiny's companion. Locking eyes with him, Irina comments on how insanely rare it is to find a human spirit mage in the wild. Tiny, meanwhile, has connected the dots. She is the VIP guest Timon was waiting for. He just didn't expect her to be this overpowered. Since throwing hands now would be suicide, he decides to play dumb, acting totally starstruck, like he has never seen an elf before. The girls are shook by his sudden fanboy behavior. He knows they aren't buying it. But the upside is, Irina can't sniff out Walling's true power level. As the master, only Tiny knows what that spirit is truly packing. He is internally cursing how well she masks such massive magic. Irina decides to show off a little, flexing some magic for Tiny. He can literally see the mana radiating off her. It triggers a flashback to when Argan lectured him on mana perception and identifying signatures, a lesson he definitely skimmed over in his past life. To figure out their odds against a monster like Irina, he starts crunching the power levels. Their squad has 12 3rd-stage expert knights and 1 4th-stage blade ranker. That is Vivian. In this world, a mage's circle count is roughly equal to a warrior's stage level. Since they only have 1 4th-stage warrior, they would need 5 Vivians just to stand a chance against Irina. Basically, they would need an army of 100 low levels to bring her down. He realizes he needs a strategy fast, which means striking when she least expects it. Luckily, he has an ace up his sleeve. Suddenly, Walling hops from Chloe's lap over to Vivian. Irina coos over how adorable the spirit is, and asks for a turn holding him. Tiny asks if she is sure, and she eagerly nods. But the second she reaches out, Walling morphs into a massive wolf beast. She reflexively pops a shield, but Vivian seizes the opening and drives a blade into her ribs. The knights are stunned as dark energy starts leaking from her wound. Her cover as a dark mage is blown wide open. She is baffled at how they clocked her. Chloe, meanwhile, is just glad she bet on our boy. Moments earlier, Tiny used Walling to telepathically tip her off about Irina's dark nature. He wanted Vivian on the offensive, but Chloe hesitated, worried about the political fallout for the Empire. Tiny convinced her Irina is the puppet master behind everything. He dropped the truth bomb about Philly's incident, warning that ignoring her was a death sentence for everyone. He looked her dead in the eye. He was betting his entire existence on this play. That is exactly why Walling leaped onto Vivian's lap, spilling the tea on the whole situation. Back in the heat of battle, Irina yeets herself backward to create distance. Vivian curses under her breath. She missed the critical hit on the heart. Irina instantly pops a defensive barrier, forcing Vivian to command her knights to form a perimeter around Chloe, and Tiny jumps into the fray. But even he bounces right off her magic shield. Irina claps back, blasting both the knights and Vivian with her sorcery, visibly triggered that they blew her cover. Tiny starts roasting her, claiming her dark magic reeks so bad it is offending his nostrils. Furious that this little creature is the reason her plans are crumbling, Irina charges up a volatile sphere of explosive magic right between her hands. A split second later, the battlefield is rocked by a massive detonation. Tiny instantly triggers his divine steel armor stacked with iron body to tank the explosion. The shockwave sends him flying, but he survives the hit. It is the first time he has popped this skill combo in this new life, and it worked like a charm. Vivian screams for her knights to eliminate Irina, spotting a hairline fracture in that annoying shield. Irina, absolutely losing it, unleashes another wave of dark energy. Tiny hops on Walling's back and the duo charges in. He smashes his weapon against her barrier. And while Irina is focused on his frontal assault, Vivian and her squad try to flank her. Irina starts monologuing, threatening that while her original target was just Tiny, she is now ready to unalive the entire party. Vivian stands on business, shouting that she is not letting that slide. As she hammers the shield again, Tiny follows up with a heavy strike, but both of them get rejected by the barrier once more. They know this is their only window of opportunity, yet that shield is holding strong. Irina realizes she has to go full send and ignore the consequences. She triggers a massive tremor in the earth with her arcane power. Vivian watches in horror as the attack locks onto Chloe. She dives in front of the healer without hesitation to tank the damage, screaming for the team to hold the line. Suddenly, her jaw drops as she sees Tiny rushing straight at Irina, completely ignoring the relentless firestorm. In reality, Tiny is mitigating the flame damage with his divine steel armor. The skill has leveled up significantly, boosting his stats alongside his secret growth ability. He signals Vivian to push now, while he body slams the shield again, determined to chip away at its durability. Both of them unleash a coordinated strike. Tiny is hyped to finally see the shield cracking, but a heartbeat later, a secondary blast ripples through the zone, knocking them both back with raw force. Although Irina is visibly battered and running on fumes, landing that hit gives the squad a morale boost. They rush back in to keep the pressure up, with Vivian circling around to close the gap from the blind side. Enraged by the audacity of these lesser beings striking an elf, Irina snaps and unleashes a torrent of blazing hellfire. The sheer intensity of the DPS leaves Vivian completely overwhelmed. She wonders how much mana this mage has left, only to be stunned as Tiny charges right through the inferno like it is nothing. By using his armor to shield both himself and his familiar, he closes the distance, until he is strictly face-to-face with Irina, landing a solid hit the very next second. Sensing that Irina is finally trying to retreat, Vivian orders her knights to secure the kill. But the cornered mage pulls a desperate final gambit, sacrificing her own life force to overclock her magic, preparing to drop a nuke that will scorch the entire map. The battlefield descends into total anarchy. As everyone scrambles for cover retreating from the splash zone, Tiny realizes the knights are completely out of juice, meaning it is all up to him to shut down her power for good. He shouts to Chloe, letting her know he bought her the time she needed. This is her moment. Vivian stands guard as Chloe charges up her mana. In the next heartbeat, Chloe begins her chant. Chloe wields Holy Power, a stat usually only unlocked after years of grinding penance and divine favor. Typically, you have to earn the right to be a priest, get baptized, and master the skill tree before you can finally awaken the ability to purge evil. Chloe, however, is one of the rare few who spawned with this power, known as a natural cleric. Seeing the knight's shook expressions, Tiny realizes that even they had no clue she was a healer class. The Valentia family must have kept it on the low, so Chloe would not be locked out of the marriage market. For the priesthood, Tiny can tell her power is still unrefined, but it is enough to counter the dark magic and wreck Irina. A second later, Chloe's holy strike hits Irina dead center. The elf cannot believe she just got owned by a mere human. Tiny steps up to double tap her since everyone else is gassed, but Chloe intervenes. She explains they need the elf alive to spill the intel. She points out that even with her cleric stats, she could not detect Irina's dark energy, and she needs to figure out that exploit. Tiny apologizes for trying to finish the job too early. Chloe wonders if she should heal Irina for the interrogation, but she quickly realizes it is game over. The dark mage has already expired. The knights are genuinely impressed to learn their lady is a high-tier cleric. Chloe turns her attention to Tiny. She clocks his reaction instantly, stone cold, zero surprise, which means he'd already pieced this puzzle together ages ago, and Tiny doesn't even try to deny it. Chloe is absolutely shook. That intel was supposed to be top-secret family clearance only. But when she presses for answers, Tiny hits her with the "I can't tell you yet" card. He swears he'll drop the full lore eventually. Surprisingly, she doesn't push back. Tiny then pivots, revealing the arena had a target painted on his back from day one. It's all blowing back from some messy situations he handled before they teamed up. Chloe connects the dots immediately. This has the exact same vibes as the Edmund disaster. Tiny nods. Bullseye. He finally admits what's really eating him up. He's terrified that his baggage is going to get her killed. But Chloe shuts that pity party down real quick. She reminds him that clapping demon worshippers isn't a burden, it's literally her job description as a noble. If she bites the dust, that just means she was too weak to survive. Simple as that. She tells him to quit the guilt trip, and Tiny respects the hustle. Scanning his face, Chloe notices he still looks tense. She realizes he wasn't scared of the enemies, he was sweating over what she would think of him. Honestly, she finds that vulnerable look kinda adorable. She smirks, telling him he's finally acting like a real kid for once. Vivian immediately jumps in on the roast, teasing him relentlessly about his sudden cute side. But while the girls are having a laugh, Chloe steers the ship back to reality. They need to flag this to the big boss immediately. She decides to file a formal report the second they hit civilization. Rolling up to the gates of T-Bone, they get blindsided by a massive surprise. Tiny knew Esgard was a helicopter parent, but this is next level. The guy went completely overboard, deploying the Blue Wing Knights just for a greeting party. Chloe looks like she wants to melt into the floor from the sheer cringe. These aren't just random guards. The Blue Wing Knights are the absolute cream of the Valentia force. Every single soldier here is an expert rank beast or higher. Vice Captain Garen drops a respectful bow, and 100 warriors follow suit in perfect sync. Chloe keeps it classy with a polite nod. But the second Garen mentions how frantic her dad has been, she snaps, sending an entire battalion. Seriously. Talk about overkill. Garen holds his ground though, reminding her the boss has every valid reason to be panicking. She did just survive a dark mage ambush after all. Plus the Lord is tied up with a massive crisis, or he would be here himself. Chloe demands the tea, and Garen spills it. 6 weeks ago, the legendary family heirloom Tempests vanished into thin air. While Chloe argues that her dad never takes that thing off, gears start turning in Tiny's head. He knows exactly what Tempest actually is. He cuts in, is this thing an artifact? Chloe hesitates. She's a bit shaky on the details. Since that kind of intel is head of house clearance only, she figures it's just some OP relic, but that's a guess. But Tiny, he's cracked the code. He drops a bomb on the squad. He knows exactly how it got stolen. You could hear a pin drop. But instead of explaining it right there, he pulls a power move. He demands an audience with the Lord, insisting he's only talking to the big man directly. Garen eyes the kid up and down, thinking, who is this pint-sized braveheart? His squad steps up, letting the vice captain know Tiny was the MVP in the Dark Mage takedown. Then they drop the stats. Tiny is borderline expert rank. Garen's brain short circuits. Not even the legendary 7 Knights were that cracked. At his age. That's beyond genius territory. It's god tier. Garen's ready to draft him right now, but then the name clicks. It's the kid who flagged the Filey disaster. Meanwhile, Chloe is just vibing, totally hyped to be back on home turf. Surrounded by endless lilac fields, Tiny asks if they're her thing. She beams absolute favorites, mostly because her parents are obsessed with them. They even nicknamed her Lilac back in the crib days. Vivian coos about Esgard's romance, but that sparks a dark flashback for Tiny. In the previous timeline, Esgard's dying breath was a confession he actually hated those flowers. It clicks. Back then, Esgard didn't know who Tiny really was. That explains the cryptic instructions to find him as soon as possible in this timeline. To fast-track his power leveling, Tiny's eyes lock on the prize, becoming an Aura Master under Esgard's tutelage. He needs to level up yesterday. Without Aura, he's useless against the heavy hitters of the demon army, and he plans to wipe every single one of them off the map. Fast forward, and the squad rolls up to Valentia, the crown jewel of the Azran Empire. The knights are relieved to be home, and Chloe shoots Tiny a look. First time in this life, he mutters. Weird flex, but before she can question it, her dad comes charging in for a bear hug. Swerve. Chloe sidesteps, and the Lord plants his face directly into the dirt. She starts lecturing him immediately. Dad, the dignity. She makes him apologize to the troops for the drama. The Lord dusts himself off, switching back to noble mode instantly, and thanks the crew for the escort mission, dismissing them to hit the buffet he set up. Finally, he clocks the kid. Who's the shrimp? Chloe sighs. Tiny is the intel source from her Dark Mage report. The Lord admits he's been swamped and missed the memo. Then, to everyone's absolute shock, Tiny looks him in the eye. I know where Tempest is. Boom. The Lord's expression darkens. That's a dangerous game to play, kid. Accusing him of bluffing, he unleashes a wave of crushing soul pressure right on the boy. Tiny barely flinches. He analyzes the energy strong but not Swordmaster level yet. Reminds him of his old squadmate Tina, who hit Aura Expert, or Jarek, who was knocking on the door. Tiny just brushes the pressure aside like a cobweb, tapping into the reserves of soul energy hoarded from his past life. You really want this intel public? Tiny challenges. Chloe panics, jumping in to apologize for his rudeness, assuming he's just a clueless kid running his mouth. But Esgard sees the intent in those eyes. This is no accident. He clears the room immediately. Once the door's shut, Esgard cuts the pleasantries. Where is it? Tiny admits he doesn't have coordinates, but he has a solid theory. Esgard's eyebrow twitches with skepticism, but he listens. Tiny knows. Tempest isn't just jewelry, it's a high-tier artifact. The name literally means time. Tiny decides to quit dancing around the subject and locks eyes with the Lord. Does it reverse time? He asks point blank. Esgard freezes, realizing the kid knows too much. Then Tiny starts outlining the apocalypse. We are talking about a massive catastrophe set to explode 20 years down the line. The scale, absolutely terrifying. Asgard starts connecting the dots. No way a random kid just hallucinates a story this detailed. He is shook. Tiny is dropping names like, he studied the Wiki, the Guardians of the World Tree, the Dwarves' heaviest hitter hammer, and even the Orcs' G-O-A-T warrior. Tiny keeps it 100. These aren't fairy tales. They were his squad back in the day. That settles it. Asgard confirms the Tempest artifact is the real deal. It sends you back, but the price tag, a powerful life force. When he first inherited that relic, he got the safety warning, but let's be real, he thought it was just a spooky myth. Now, the denial is gone. He has to accept the insane reality his future self actually sent Tiny back in time. But here's the plot hole. Asgard can't figure out why Tiny. Why trust the fate of the world to this guy? Tiny is stunned by the shade. Then it clicks for Asgard. He could have used the rewind button on himself. Think about it. Asgard has the status, the combat XP, and 20 years of future intel. He could have built an unstoppable army and crushed the Demon Lord before the war even started. It makes zero sense. Why pick a random rookie instead of handling business himself? Even Tiny is wondering what the logic was. Tiny gives the honest answer. Future Asgard claimed it was about his potential. He wanted to nurture the talent. Back then, Tiny thought the old man had lost his mind. Asgard nods but adds a twist. He didn't know exactly when Tiny would land. Wait, what? Tiny freezes. Asgard fired off a time travel nuke without knowing the blast radius. The Lord admits he was flying blind. He'd never used it before, but he was betting on one specific mechanic. The artifact drags you to the moment that defined you. The instant your soul was truly shaken and you realized who you were. Tiny's face goes dark. The realization hits him like a freight train. That defining moment, it was the day his sister died. Asgard spots the mood shift instantly. He asks, "Did I mess up, sending you here?" But Tiny just shakes his head. No bad blood. He gets it. It's not the Lord's fault. If anything, he feels a wave of gratitude. He got the chance to see his sister one last time. But Asgard needs one final receipt to lock this in. He needs proof. Something so personal and specific that it is impossible to fake. Tiny locks in. Your daughter Chloe, her name is Lilac. After your wife's favorite flower, right? Asgard scoffs. Literally everyone knows that. Tiny is about to drop the real bomb. Yeah, but here's the secret. You actually hate those flowers. Asgard freezes and busts out laughing. Bingo. He admits it. He never had the guts to tell his wife he couldn't stand them. And now she is gone, so the secret dies with her. He mutters a curse caught somewhere between laughing and breaking down. He has to accept the grim future. Tiny is just glad the interrogation is over, even if young Asgard has a serious temper. Suddenly, the Lord barks for his Knight Royer. Surprise time. Asgard looks Tiny in the eye. My future self might trust you, bro, but I don't know you at all. You say you got talent, prove it. Tiny feels the adrenaline spike. It is showtime. But once they step outside, the reality check hits. This is low-key unfair. Future Asgard was all go find me hurry, and now present Asgard is running a surprise pop quiz. Tiny decides to be cheeky. He asks if the Lord wants any spoilers about his own future. He expects a yes please. Instead, he gets a curveball. Asgard shuts it down. I don't care about my personal drama. I only care about the apocalypse. He forbids Tiny from spoiling his or his kids' lives. No cheat codes allowed. People need to crash and burn to learn, he says. Chloe needs to face her own struggles. He won't rob her of that growth. Tiny shrugs. Well, joke is on you. I don't actually know your personal tea anyway. I was too busy trying to survive. I didn't have time to keep up with celebrity gossip. Asgard grabs him by the collar. He shakes him. So you really know the world's future, the big picture. Tiny nods. I know the headline events. The massive upheavals that wrecked everything. What else? Asgard presses. You've only listed a handful of players. Asgard demands answers about the missing timeline. When Tiny gives him a blank stare, the Lord decides a physical beatdown might jog the kid's memory. A little trauma for future reference. But as the Lord scans the intel, Tiny did provide. His face twists into a scowl. He is definitely not vibing with this. Out of 10 world-ending catastrophes destined to hit Tiny's memory bank is running on empty. The kid starts sweating, admitting his intel is basically trash pieced together from bar talk random rumors, and whatever scraps his buddies tossed out. Seeing the Lord's icy glare, Tiny wishes he could speedrun puberty so Asgard would actually respect him. Asgard realizes the only diamond in the rough is the Oracle's prophecy. A warrior and a saint are destined to end the war. Figuring these saviors must be in their 20s by now, the Lord plots to draft and drill them immediately. Then Tiny drops the bomb. They might not even be born yet. That's it. Game over. Asgard loses it, labeling Tiny completely worthless. The butler tries to bring in Royer, but Asgard flips the script. No. Get me Drexler. He wants a heavyweight to teach Tiny a lesson he won't forget. Cut to our boy facing down the vice captain of the Blue Wing Knights, Drexler Einon, a 5th stage powerhouse. Drexler salutes, but the guy is visibly confused. When the boss orders a sparring match with a child, Drexler starts spiraling. Is this a demotion? Did he mess up? Asgard cuts through his internal panic, barking orders to watch Tiny's every move during the fight. Drexler locks eyes with the kid, trying to get a read on him. He scans Tiny's mana and freezes. This kid is already at the second stage, borderline, expert rank despite looking like he belongs in elementary school. Meanwhile, Tiny is totally zoned out. He's busy thinking about the blacksmith who forged his gear. The weapon is cool, sure, but he's already fantasizing about upgrading to something bigger. Badass tier. Asgard snaps his fingers. Focus. He warns Tiny that if he doesn't take this seriously, the deal is dead in the water. Then he turns to the knight. Drexler, don't hold back. Just try not to actually murder the child. He glares at Tiny, setting the record straight. He isn't the future version who made pinky promises. This version of Asgard needs to see raw talent before lifting a finger. Tiny asks the million-dollar question, do I have to beat him? The Lord lays down the law. Tiny just needs to land a single scratch on the knight to take the W. Our protagonist accepts with a cocky grin, weapon at the ready. From the sidelines, Asgard studies Tiny's mana control. It's weird. It's unique. He realizes Tiny didn't just learn this, he invented it. Through a secret growth technique. The kid is a certified genius. Still, Asgard is baffled. Why did his future self bet everything on this kid, instead of time-traveling back himself? Asgard knows he could have been an aura master. There has to be some X-factor his future self saw in this boy. And he is going to find out. He signals the start. Fight. Tiny instantly summons Walling. When the knight stands like a statue, the kid decides to go on the offensive. Drexler clocks Walling as a spirit immediately, but he isn't sweating it. A summon like that isn't enough to drop him. That confidence crumbles when Tiny effortlessly weaves past his first counterattack. Tiny claps back instantly. But when his blade bounces off without leaving a mark, he realizes Drexler isn't just a tank. He's a fortress. An expert in both offense and defense. Now things are getting interesting. Drexler stops playing nice and unleashes a heavy strike. Tiny dodges again. Realizing he needs serious velocity to crack this shell, Tiny pushes his speed to the red line, leaving Drexler shook by the sheer blur of motion. To stop the pest, the brute grips his weapon and slams the earth, shattering the ground to wreck Tiny's footing. As Tiny goes airborne to dodge the shockwave, he sees Drexler's hammer swinging for his head. It's a desperate mid-air evasion. That hammer is massive, way bigger than a greatsword, yet Drexler swings it like it's made of styrofoam. Tiny realizes the guy usually fights with a shield, meaning his defense is impenetrable. Time to switch up the strat. As the hammer comes around again, Tiny launches himself skyward. Drexler roars, warning the boy to stop scurrying like a rat. Asgard watches closely. Tiny has downloaded the battle rhythm, slipping past every lethal swing with terrifying ease. Watching this ghostly evasion, Asgard finally admits it, the kid's claim about being one of the 10 knights. It might be the real deal. Even with the kid showing insane talent, Asgard isn't buying the hype just yet. His fuse finally burns out, and he roars at Drexler to stop making a fool of himself. Humiliated and fuming, Drexler snaps, launching himself forward with zero restraint. Panic hits Asgard like a truck as he realizes the knight isn't holding back. He's summoning the devastating power of his soul weapon. Asgard screams to stop, but the words die in the air. It's too late. Instead of dodging, Tiny goes full kamikaze, charging straight into the kill zone, while Asgard questions the kid's sanity. Reality cracks. A cataclysmic explosion rips through the arena, engulfing them both in chaos. The shockwave sends Tiny sprawling into the dirt, battered and broken by the sheer force of the blast. Asgard sees red, instantly turning his rage on the knight who lost control. Drexler stammers that it was an accident, but the Lord isn't hearing any of it. He rushes to Tiny's side, tearing into him for treating a simple skills test like a death wish. Bloodied and broken, Tiny just smirks, claiming this mess as a total victory. Asgard glances back at Drexler, and suddenly the insane logic of the exchange clicks into place. The kid didn't just tank a soul weapon, he launched a counterattack right through it. While the blast crushed Tiny, he managed to plant a solid fist right in Drexler's face. Asgard points out that he nearly died for a cheap shot, but Tiny stands his ground. He tells the Lord that his whole life has been do or die, and pushing past the breaking point is the only way he knows how to survive. He doesn't care about the injuries. He only cares if he proved he's worth Asgard's time. That raw grit hits home. Asgard finally understands why his future self bet everything on this kid. He nods to Tiny's fighting spirit and vows to keep his promise. Tiny gets exactly what he asked for. Tiny blacks out only to wake up later, stunned by his own Wolverine-level healing factor. The Lord is already there, eyeing that unnatural recovery speed, before dragging him off for a private chat. Turns out he was only out for half a day, leaving Tiny wondering if a high priest patched him up. Their stroll gets ambushed by a furious Chloe, who starts grilling her dad for dragging a patient out of bed. Asgard throws his hands up. The kid did this to himself, and he's not about to hurt the guy who saved his daughter's life. Tiny freezes. In his mind, Chloe saved him, but the Lord's narrative is flipped. Seeing Chloe's distress, Tiny bites the bullet, blaming his own greed and apologizing for the drama. She tells him to act his age, but then hits him with a look of genuine awe that catches him off guard. Asgard's dad senses tingle, and he immediately warns Tiny not to get any funny ideas about his little girl. Tiny tries to explain he's just confused about the savior title, remembering a timeline where he failed to stop the dark mage. Asgard cuts him off cold, realizing those tragic events have been erased by the time jump. He sends Chloe off to prep for her ceremony, clearing the room for the heavy stuff. She reluctantly bounces and Asgard drops a serious warning bomb. Tiny has to keep his time traveler status on lockdown, especially from the priesthood. Time and space belong to the creator. Even the goddess isn't allowed to mess with that code. For a human to hack the timeline is the ultimate sin, which is exactly why the Valentia family keeps their mouths shut. When Tiny questions the goddess's rank, the Lord reveals the real history has been scrubbed from the public servers. The uncensored truth is gone from the temples, preserved only in the vaults of the ancient noble houses. They lock in the plan, the secret stays between them and the future knights who join the squad. But they agree on one hard rule: the group known as God's Hand is strictly off the invite list. Tiny is hyped to hunt down the 10 Knights of Azran, using his future cheats to turn them into an unstoppable force. When the Lord fishes for future intel, Tiny claps back payment first, questions later. He even has the guts to mock the guy, calling him a senile old man. That earns him a swift smack to the head before the Lord drags him outside. Asgard decides the kid needs a crash course in respect, but he's still going to honor the deal. Asgard gears up to school, Tiny on the Valentia clan's ultimate secret sauce, a gravity manipulation technique that's been gatekept for generations. But the training vibes are off immediately. Tiny isn't locking in at all, and literally starts sawing logs mid-lecture. That disrespect earns him a swift smack to the head from Asgard, who is way too hyped to get this session started. The Duke breaks down the family's OP growth system, which stands on 4 pillars: mana, control, unique swordplay, unlocking a stage 3 attribute, and finally copping that stage 7 aura. Tiny suddenly gets it. This blueprint is why the Valentias run the game. Since our MC is married to his massive warhammer instead of a flimsy blade, Asgard decides to toss the offensive sword drills out the window. Tiny starts mental mathing his build, figuring if he can copy the Lord's legendary tank defense, he'll be unstoppable. But Asgard flips the script with a different offer. He wants to teach Tiny how to unlock a special attribute right now, skipping the defense drills. Our boy looks straight up salty about that, clearly wanting the defensive buffs instead. Cut to the shadows, a shady cabal of mages is debriefing on Elaine's failure to destroy the heart of Elfam. Their boss identifies the problem: a young Morse family descendant took her out. Yeah, he's talking about our boy. Worried the Empire might recruit the kid first, the leader orders his minions to do some heavy recon on him as soon as possible. But he keeps them focused, reminding the squad that their deal with the Karen Kingdom is still priority number 1. Back at the dojo, Tiny is skeptical. He thinks choosing an attribute is cap, and assumes he'll just respawn his old explosion power once he hits stage 3. Asgard shuts that down. He notes that even though Tiny is a kid, his body density is off the charts thanks to that secret technique. He points out Tiny's heavy loadout, drawing a line between physical mass and energy consumption. Usually lugging around that much weight makes you slow, but Asgard has a workaround. Enter gravity, a force most mages sleep on. The Lord explains that by mastering this, Tiny can flip his heavy bulk into a superpower, storing insane amounts of energy to scale his strength exponentially. Asgard drops a bombshell. This hack will boost him straight to expert rank basics. But while the Duke geeks out over the science, Tiny is struggling to process the theory. When Asgard says gravity pulls things down, Tiny calls it nonsense, arguing that if the ground pulled us, we'd be stuck, like glue. The debate gets spicy as the Lord tries to explain falling physics. But Tiny just shrugs, claiming falling is just a fact of life that doesn't need a deep dive. Fed up with Tiny's thick skull, the Lord decides a hands-on demonstration is the only way to get through to him. He drags the kid to the edge of a high rooftop. Tiny spots mana flaring in Asgard's fist, danger imminent. Facing a potential nosedive, Tiny suddenly becomes a believer, admitting gravity might be real, just to avoid the drop. Too little too late. The Lord yeets him off the ledge anyway to make sure the lesson sticks. As he plummets, Tiny panics and triggers his divine steel armor, crashing directly onto poor Wulong, who just walked into the wrong scene. Asgard floats down, asking if the concept of gravity has clicked yet. Tiny is traumatized and begs for a verbal lecture, but Asgard is all about that exposure therapy and drops him a few more times. Fade to black. Tiny wakes up with his chest glowing under Chloe's healing magic. She's shocked he's already hit expert rank, leaving Tiny confused about when exactly he leveled up. Our guy sits there in a daze trying to process the madness of the last few hours. It hits him, he actually ascended to expert rank while getting tossed off a roof. The sheer terror of free fall forced his body to adapt to gravity's pressure instantly. Chloe watches him, noting that her dad's training style is basically torture. She's high-key impressed, mentioning the entire Blue Wing Knight Order is already gossiping about his genius. When Tiny asks about her coming-of-age prep, assuming she's swamped, Chloe waves it off, claiming it's just boring etiquette drills. Tiny hypes her up, saying she'll crush it, which catches her off guard. She reacts with a playful slap. She flips her hair, declaring she's the main character of the day, so success is guaranteed. Then the vibe shifts. She tells Tiny that since her dad trained him, they're basically fam now. She gives him the green light to call her sister a massive flex coming from a duke's daughter. Tiny barely holds back a chuckle playing along with the charade. Chloe grabs him, demanding a pinky promise to keep their bloodline strictly on the down low. Before dipping, she drops a bomb. Drexler is hunting him down. Fast forward and Tiny spots the knight center stage in the arena, with a VIP section full of big shots watching. Drexler clocks Tiny's glow up immediately. Tiny nods, scanning the high rollers in the stands. This isn't a casual chat. He's the main event. Suddenly, the knight tosses his weapon aside, calling Tiny out for a bare-knuckle brawl. He confesses his performance last time was a total embarrassment for a legend like him. He frames this revenge match as training for Tiny's new power. Tiny's game. He launches himself like a cannonball, shattering the ground beneath his boots. The raw speed and mass terrify Drexler, who can't process that this monster is the same kid from last week. Tiny slams a haymaker into Drexler's shield, sending the veteran skidding backward. They collide, and the shockwave ripples through the stadium air like a bomb went off. Drexler's arms turn to jelly under the insane weight of Tiny's hits. Tiny lunges, metal crashing against the shield. He kicks it into overdrive, unleashing a 23-hit combo in the blink of an eye. Even Drexler is sweating the speed boost. The crowd is losing their minds, trying to figure out how a kid swings a heavy mace with that kind of velocity. Drexler grabs his own steel, deciding playtime is over. As they clash, Tiny enters the zone, riding the mana flow and applying those gravity hacks he just learned. He realizes that by tweaking his own mass, he can make his strikes feather light or heavy as a mountain. To test the theory, he goes full throttle. Drexler's eyes bug out as he feels the impact. Desperate to end this, the knight vaults into the sky and triggers his ultimate move, Lightning Smash Form 1. The impact nukes the arena floor. As the dust clears over the cratered ruins, Drexler realizes there's no point in dragging this out. Tiny thanks him for the spar. Drexler tries to save face, claiming he went easy. Tiny claps back, dropping the fact that he didn't even use his spirit summoning yet, and brings out Wolong just to flex. Laughing at the kid's savage confidence, Drexler officially invites him to the elite Blue Wing Knights roster, but Tiny kills the mood instantly. Yeah, I'm not joining your club. Drexler freezes, brain buffering. He realizes Tiny hasn't just improved, he's mastered the Valentia family's darkest secrets. Later, Asgard casually mentions he forgot to tell the Knights about Tiny's plans to travel the world. Basically, the kid's going freelance, no strings attached. But Tiny isn't just good, he's a prodigy. He humbly credits the Lord for his insane leveling speed. Sensing a massive catastrophe on the horizon, the Lord reveals the prep work is done. For the final loot drop, he hands Tiny an artifact warhammer. This thing is dripping with semi-permanent magic, worth more than a knight makes in a lifetime. Tiny tries to refuse the handout. Funny enough, the Lord admits he's been crafting it for months. Originally, as a retirement gold watch for Drexler. Next stop, Randall's Hammers, home of a grumpy dwarf blacksmith. Asgard wants the weapon tuned for Tiny. Randall is instantly triggered, thinking it's a crime to waste master-tier gear on a child. But Tiny knows the lore. A master dwarf craves a wielder worthy of their steel. To earn some respect, Tiny flares his expert-level mana. The dwarf activates Truthful Eye, a racial passive that scans a person's soul for vibes. He finally clicks. Tiny is the real deal. He tells the kid to hold up and agrees to show the goods. Moments later, Tiny inspects the gear. Randall explains the Duke's artifact is getting shock absorption mods, so he needs to slap on some defense buffs. Tiny asks for damage enchantments instead. The dwarf scowls at the request. Tiny wants perfection. Knowing you don't see a Warhammer artifact drop every day, he takes it anyway, since it's still packing 3 magic types. Then Randall mentions a stash in the back, a black steel behemoth, etched with gravity runes. The last guy ditched it because it was basically immovable. Tiny's eyes go wide. The dwarf adds that it's got shock amplification and auto-repair specs. Tiny demands to see the beast. Even though the hammer clocks in at over 100 kilograms, Tiny lifts it like a toothpick and slams it down, shattering the workshop floor. It feels eerily similar to Nocturne, his main weapon from his past life. He asks Randall to mod the handle for his growth spurt. The grumpy dwarf grumbles, but agrees once Tiny drops the magic words. The Duke pays double. He christens the massive new hardware, Stamp. Back at the stronghold, Tiny debriefs the Lord, who breathes a sigh of relief that the sledgehammer finally found an owner. That means Drexler gets to hold on to his original gift, bullet dodged. With 2 weeks on the clock before the weapon drops, Tiny decides to go full grind mode on his training. But when he casually drops a phrase in an ancient Eastern tongue, Asgard does a double take. The Lord is seriously impressed that Tiny is diving into Eastern linguistics, realizing it's the perfect alibi to mask his shadowy origin story. The vibe instantly darkens, though the moment Chloe's engagement to the Crown Prince comes up, Tiny doesn't sugarcoat it. He warns him, One more time, the prince is a dead man, walking destined to perish on his wedding day. That tragedy triggers a domino effect leading to a second apocalypse, a total wipeout of the imperial family, followed by the utter destruction of the nation. In the timeline Tiny lived through, Chloe was branded with the tragic title, Crown Princess of Misfortune. Asgard admits the intel isn't new to him, but he's riding high on the belief that he can rewrite destiny. Tiny counters that they're flying blind without accurate data. Asgard gushes about how incredible Chloe is, while admitting she's still got a steep learning curve. Tiny keeps it real, knowing she's destined to be abandoned, left to manage a collapsing empire. In total misery, Asgard hardens his resolve, swearing to play his cards carefully this time around. Tiny holds his tongue, but internally vows to save Chloe on his own terms, if the Lord's strategy falls apart. But the conversation takes a sharp left turn when Tiny talks about Chloe, with just a little too much casual intimacy. The Lord's overprotective. Dad mode activates instantly. He delivers a swift smack to the back of Tiny's head, accusing him of catching feelings for his daughter. Outside, the energy is totally different. It's electric. Crowds are swarming the castle grounds for the coming-of-age ceremony. As 0 hour approaches, a scout stationed by the window updates the Lord, reporting that the guest list has exploded beyond expectations. It's a Valentia event, so naturally, the nobles are turning up in droves for the clout. Janus Freewell, the iron-willed captain of the Blue Wing Knights, is running a tight ship, ensuring absolutely nothing ruins the vibe. The Lord nods at the hustle. Then he drops the news that a rep from Lowhitter is in the building. Bad news, it's the chaotic third son. The House of Lowhitter swings heavy political weight in the kingdom, and has been beefing with the Valentia family for generations. Sending a loose cannon like him feels like a deliberate slap in the face. The Lord looks shocked and orders his team to remind the guy exactly whose turf he's standing on. Janus assures him the security detail is already locked and loaded. The Lord tells Janus he's the MVP, always reliable. But then he pauses, scrutinizing Janus with a weird intensity, asking if he's hiding a secret illness. Janus is visibly thrown off by the random health check. The Lord waves it off fast, claiming it's nothing, then adds that Janus doesn't need to micromanage the ceremony personally. Janus refuses to stand down. To him, Chloe isn't just a charge. She's family, basically a little sister, and he wants to be in the mix. The Lord respects the loyalty and tells him to save the apologies. Chloe has always shadowed Janus, looking up to him like the big brother she never had. Then the Lord pivots and asks about marriage. Janus looks totally lost. He shuts it down immediately, reminding the Lord that this topic is permanently off the table. The Lord gets flustered and apologizes, blaming the pre-ceremony stress. He dismisses Janus back to his post. Once the captain exits, the Lord sinks into a quiet contemplation. Janus stepped up as captain right after his father passed, and has been a rock ever since. But then, a chilling memory surfaces, Tiny mentioning that he never heard the name Janus in the future timeline. That detail gnaws at him. It's not marriage or sickness that erases him. A level 6 mana user doesn't just drop dead in a standard skirmish. The Lord connects the dots. The second calamity has to be the cause of his disappearance. Meanwhile, Tiny is outside gasping for air mid-workout, his mind also drifting to Janus. He realizes Asgard has a point. With this many high-profile nobles mixed into a political pressure cooker, the ceremony is a ticking time bomb. The concentration of power players just spikes the risk factor. Suddenly, Chloe enters the frame. Tiny panics, slightly worried that hanging out here is a bad look, considering the VIPs are already swarming. Vivian explains she tried to keep Chloe from wandering, but the girl is unstoppable. Chloe confesses the main hall feels suffocating, and she's just chasing some peace and quiet. Plus, she's hyped to see Wallen. Tiny summons the creature, letting her have a moment with it. She lights up, scooping Wallen into her arms, feeling like his company makes the dull event bearable. Just then, Tebran von Lowhitter crashes the party, greeting Chloe with zero hesitation. He gushes over her looks and introduces himself like he owns the place. Chloe is taken aback when the name Lowhitter drops. He carries himself with unearned confidence, acting like they're already a thing. He suggests that, since it's their first link-up, they should hang out and pop some bottles, acting like alcohol is totally appropriate right now. Chloe is visibly confused by the creep vibes. Offering booze before an engagement is even announced. Total red flag. Vivian steps up like a boss, firmly stating, Chloe has guests to attend to. Tebran snaps, his ego bruised, questioning how a mere female knight dares to cut him off. He barks an order to his hulking enforcer, Graham. Graham steps up, blocking her path like a human wall, insisting this conversation is VIP access, only strictly for the blue bloods. Vivian is the only one who holds her ground, firing back that his logic is absolute nonsense. Graham switches up his vibe instantly, smoothing his voice into a salesman's pitch. He claims his young master has been waiting sincerely for years, begging for just a crumb of attention. Tebran doubles down, pressing hard for his shot. Tiny watches the whole scene play out, eyes narrowing. Graham's plastered-on smile screams red flag even louder than Tebron's entitlement. Deciding he's seen enough, Tiny crashes the party. He casually asks Chloe who these clowns are, leaving her confused and Tebron absolutely fuming. Tebron snaps immediately, barking orders at Graham to take out the trash before the kid can even blink. Tiny doesn't even stress. He delivers a single casual slap that launches the knight straight into the stratosphere. Tebron hits the dirt hard. Humiliated and raging, Graham charges at Tiny for round 2. Tiny hits replay, slapping him again with zero effort and sending him sailing over the nearest building. From a high window, a noble watches the spectacle jaw on the floor. He can't process that a literal child just one-shotted a trained knight like it was nothing. As Graham freefalls through the air, his life flashes before his eyes. He recalls the moment his lord gave the order to escort the third son, specifically to cause a massive scene at Chloe's ceremony. He had pushed back, warning that this stunt would drag the low-hitter name through the mud. The master hadn't cared less. Tebron was already expired goods to the family. He was getting disowned anyway, making him nothing more than disposable pawns. Trading a piece of trash to solve a problem cleanly. That's just efficiency. Graham was told to shut up, do the job, and play dumb. As gravity finally reclaims him, 2 nobles observe the aftermath from a VIP box above. They are absolutely floored that an expert knight got wrecked by a kid. The sight gives them the chills. One struggles to pin the blame on Tiny, while the other realizes no normal prodigy moves like that. The kid isn't talented. He's a monster. Duke Valentia, however, finds the whole thing hilarious. The idea of raising such a chaotic force is pure entertainment to him, and meeting the boy just moved to the top of his bucket list. The topic shifts to Duke Alan Khan, low hitter. They suspect the guy is playing 4D chess, faking loyalty to the crown while actively trying to sabotage the power alliance between the Imperials and the Valentias. They scoff at the thought of Lohiter trying to step to the Valentia family, especially since Duke Valentia has been a top-tier aura user for years. One noble notes that the Emperor is likely gatekeeping power, not wanting Esgard to get too strong. They glance at the 2 unconscious bodies and suggest a cleanup crew, but the other waves it off. It's pointless. Why? Because the Valentia brothers, the ultimate overprotective siblings, have just touched down at the estate. Inside, Esgard debriefs Tiny Tebron's bad behavior. Got him kicked out of his family, so Tiny beats the assault charges on a technicality. But then the Lord slams the desk, warning Tiny to stop using his fists as a universal problem solver. He needs the boy ready for the Demon King, not sitting in a jail cell. Tiny shrugs it off, pointing out that the guests were acting super suspicious. That excuse triggers Esgard, who suddenly loses it, screaming about how dare anyone disrespect his daughter, under his own roof. Tiny stands there thinking, aren't you the one who told me to chill? Suddenly, Tiny is nearly flattened by 2 human hurricanes, Chloe's brothers, who are on a warpath to teach Tebron a permanent lesson. In the chaos, Tiny accidentally checks one of them, Tren knocking him to the ground. The brother is stunned that a mere child just tanked their momentum. They clock Tiny immediately from the viral rumors about the Drexler fight, and realize this is the student their dad picked up. The eldest Aaron gives props to Tiny's skills, but cuts the chat short to hunt down Tebron, swearing the guy won't make it out of the territory breathing. Tiny recognizes Aaron as the future heir, but then he freezes. That second brother, he wasn't in the original timeline. Tiny realizes with a sinking feeling that this guy is a walking death flag destined to die like Genos. On the walk back, Tiny vents about the Azran imperial family, annoyed by their obsession with the Golden Dragon bloodline and their elitist guest lists. His rant gets intercepted by 2 nobles who materialize out of nowhere. One guy mocks him for talking trash out loud. Tiny's instincts scream that the man is wearing a magical disguise to mask his real identity. The stranger introduces himself as Baron Narsar, just another guest. Narsar roasts the Duke's judgment for recruiting a kid like Tiny. Tiny's gaze sharpens, reminding the stranger to watch his mouth on Valentia soil. Narsar laughs it off, flipping the script to act friendly, even offering to treat Tiny to dinner to bond. Tiny considers beating the identity out of him, right then and there, but he remembers Esgard's lecture and decides to play the long game. But the second Narsar asks to slide into a meeting with Chloe, Tiny's patience hits 0. No verbal warning, no heads up. Tiny unleashes a backhand so violent, it literally launches the guy into the stratosphere. Narsar's partner is left standing there, completely shook, while Tiny just flashes him a terrifyingly calm smile. Internally though, Tiny knows he messed up. He let his temper take the wheel again. His panic is cut short when Exelon goes full berserk mode on him. Tiny barely dodges the blitz, managing to clash blades, but his opponent is fueled by pure rage, screaming about tearing him into confetti. The vibe shifts instantly. When Tiny feels the air get heavy mana space control, he realizes with a jolt that he isn't fighting a guard. He's facing a challenger rank monster. Exelon vows to slice him open, but Tiny tanks the pressure with his Iron God armor. He pulls a pro gamer move, summoning Walling behind the enemy as a distraction. The spirit beast bait works, catching Exelon off guard just long enough for Tiny to land a solid punch. But it's like hitting a steel wall, 0 damage. Exelon doesn't even blink. He grabs Tiny by the collar and yeets him across the courtyard like a wet paper towel. Tiny manages to stick the landing just as the knight winds up a finisher that would definitely delete him. Suddenly, his spirit wolf dives in to block. Next second, Tiny hits the dirt hard. Just as Exelon raises his blade for the execution, Narsar slides in and orders him to stand down, taking the L and accepting full blame for the drama. Later, Janus pulls Tiny aside for a vibe check. Tiny admits his mistake, explaining he swung first because the guy was acting sus. Janus decides to let it slide since the noble chilled out and forgave him, but he still drops a serious warning. He tells Tiny to stop underestimating Valencia and the VIP guests rolling through with special passes. Tiny feels the crushing weight of the man's aura and listens as Janus lectures him on survival and being cautious, so he doesn't waste his insane potential. Before Janus dips, Tiny tries to fish for intel, asking about Narsar's deal. Janus tries to gatekeep the info, but Tiny presses asking if the guy is with the Imperial family. Janus instantly regrets opening his mouth. He realizes that a challenger rank bodyguard is a dead giveaway that screams royalty. He orders Tiny to keep his mouth shut, and Tiny plays along, but the gears are turning in Tiny's head. He does the math. A powerhouse bodyguard means an Imperial inspector. It all lines up with Chloe's ceremony, which is basically the soft launch of her engagement to the Crown Prince. 1 week flies by, and the big day finally drops. The castle is overflowing with elites, while Janus stresses over every detail for his sister. Meanwhile, Tiny is absolutely destroying the buffet. Janus watches in annoyance as Tiny inhales food, warning him to slow down before he explodes. Tiny brushes it off. Janus decides to let him cook, literally, knowing the kid needs massive calories to fuel his growth spurt. Their mukbang is interrupted by Narsar, who catches Tiny while Janus is busy doing official duties. Tiny quickly apologizes for the previous 5-finger discount to the face. Narsar flips the script and acts weirdly gracious. He claims he was impressed by Tiny's guts and literally tells him to slap him again, if he ever acts arrogant. Tiny is fully weirded out, wondering if this guy has some kind of humiliation kink. The party officially starts as the host announces the main character. Chloe steps into the hall, with her dad and brothers looking absolutely fire in her ceremonial dress. Narsar is visibly stunned by her visuals. Seeing him stare at Chloe with that intensity triggers Tiny's protective big brother mode. The nobles are also captivated, noticing she looks like a goddess. Chloe stays ice cold, knowing her life is officially changing forever. From the sidelines, Tiny watches her flashing back to the wholesome moment she asked him to be her brother. That memory spikes his mana, accidentally summoning, walling right into the ballroom, leaving the crowd totally speechless. Even Lord Esgard is shook. Walling acts like a giant puppy around Chloe until she commands him to sit. Some snobby guests start murmuring about a mutt crashing the party, but then Walling starts glowing. He morphs into a massive mythical wolf right there, making everyone freeze in terror. They realize this isn't a pet. It's a high-tier awakener ability. Narsar thanks him for the show, but Tiny finds the guy's attitude super annoying and suspicious. He silently decides that if Narsar keeps acting up, he might have to slap him into next week again. Esgard walks up to his daughter, getting emotional about how proud her late mother would be. The vibe in the room gets heavy and sad, though only the OGs who know the family history really understand why. Then the Lord places the medal on her neck and drops the bombshell. He points light, floods the room, and a magical hologram of her fiancé manifests. The projection introduces himself as Bradley Van Aslan. He apologizes for being a virtual groom but claims he's honored. In the crowd, Vivian gasps. She recognizes the voice as the reincarnation of a legendary king. Tiny is unimpressed. He remembers his past life where that so-called legend died for absolutely nothing. Narsar attempts to dive into the fray, but Tiny yanks him back, telling him to chill out. Then he drops a weird request, spell Narsar backwards. It clicks instantly, Azron. Tiny's blood runs cold as the realization hits him. That guy he completely pummeled back then. That was the Crown Prince. Absolute dread washes over him, as he imagines the royal execution that's probably waiting for him. Janus spots him, vibrating with anxiety, and asks for a vibe check. Tiny lies, blaming the heat, but Janus cuts straight to the chase. She tells him to relax because the prince has totally let it slide. She assures him he's going to be safe and sound in Valencia. In fact, she reveals the Crown Prince is the one who fought the Emperor to make this marriage happen. That confirms that the prince is officially an ally. Later, Janus mentions Lord Esgard needs a sit-down with Tiny. After the ceremony, the Lord thanks Tiny for bringing Wooling, saying the creature was clutch in keeping Chloe calm. Then the tone shifts. He stares at Tiny, weighing his words. A legendary artifact has vanished, and a colossal monster known as a kraken is poised to wipe the capital off the map. He questions the logic of a kraken appearing, when literally any other beast would make more sense. Tiny suggests a deep dive investigation, then pivots to ask about his hammer. The Lord confirms the tuning is done and directs him to the smithy the next day. When Tiny steps into the workshop, the new weapon is sitting there, and it is an absolute unit. The blacksmith warns it's heavier for maximum impact, self-repairing, and calibrated perfectly to Tiny's unique mana signature. The smith admits the thing gives him the creeps. It feels unnatural. He can't fathom how his son forged something so intense. Tiny hefts it like it's made of styrofoam, and the smith suggests a test swing. It moves like liquid mercury, feeling less like a tool and more like a partner. Tiny is low-key obsessed. Later, Tiny takes his familiar out for a field test to see how the hammer moves at high speeds. He is seriously impressed, and silently thanks Randall for the masterwork. Suddenly, Wooling gets the zoomies speeding up, which Tiny assumes is just the wolf vibing under the moonlight. He checks their velocity and realizes they are tearing up the road. They are going to hit the port city of Annexon in just 1 week. Meanwhile, in a shadowed room, demon cultists receive intel that Tiny has exited the Duke's territory. The leader is salty that Tiny is riding a top-tier spirit beast that outpaces any carriage. Confirming Tiny is en route to Annexon to reach Kairun, the leader decides it's the perfect ambush point. He commands the tamers to intercept and delete him. Back on the trail, a squad of Black Knights leaps out to block the road. They are super arrogant, trash-talking him. They claim they are on his level and that he doesn't stand a chance, even with his fancy spirit beast. They flare their mana, ready to teach him a painful lesson. One knight looses an arrow, but Tiny swats it out of the air like a mosquito. The knights freeze, totally shook, because that was a high-tier attack. They gaslight themselves into thinking it was a fluke and rush him betting on numbers. Tiny is bored with their monologue. He swings the hammer instantly, flattening one of the knights. The guy realizes Tiny's strength is the real deal, a split second before he gets pasted into the dirt. Tiny roasts them for being vermin, serving demons instead of true knights. The rest of the squad realizes the intel on Tiny's power level was a lie, and they scramble to flee. But Tiny isn't letting anyone leave. He hunts them down and slams his hammer into the earth, shattering the ground and trapping them in the fissures. Dusting off his hands, he's loving the weapon's performance. But then he pauses. How did these guys know his exact route? He feels a twinge of regret for unaliving them all since he can't interrogate a corpse. Suddenly, a massive tree snaps behind him. A gargantuan two-headed troll steps out of the gloom. Tiny knows the difficulty. Just spiked, a boss-level monster is here, and it has locked onto him. Tiny stares at the behemoth, realizing how ridiculous this setup is. Because a rank 5 monster has zero business spawning in this zone. These things can throw hands with elite mages. Yet here it is, rushing him with a massive axe. He barely dodges the strike before a voice from the shadows commands the beast to finish him. Confirmed, this isn't a wild encounter. It's a hit ordered by a magic tamer. He knows the troll is just a puppet. He signals Wooling to target the tamer, but the mage triggers a magical artifact, sending the troll into a berserker rage. The monster hurls its axe again, and even though Tiny evades, the shockwave snaps trees like toothpicks. The troll is frighteningly fast, spamming attacks from his blind spot, and it's starting to get on Tiny's nerves. He knows trolls are rank 5 for a reason, pure muscle and instant regeneration, so he plays the long game waiting for a pixel of an opening. The fight turns critical when the troll exhales a cloud of toxic smog. Tiny feels his strength draining, but he flares his mana to stay in the fight. The axe comes down, Tiny doesn't flinch. He swings that brand new hammer upward with every ounce of grit he's got. Boom! The impact shakes the ground. That extra weapon weight is putting in work, and for a split second, Tiny looks like he's dominating the exchange. But reality hits hard. The monster's wounds stitch themselves back together instantly. Tiny is forced to retreat. Now it's a deadly dance of dodging and weaving. Tiny lands bone-crushing hits, but the troll just resets its health bar like it's cheating. From the sidelines, the tamer smirks, betting Tiny's stamina will hit 0 first. The brawl rages on. Tiny's back literally hits the wall, no room left. But catch this, the monster is wheezing. The tamer's strategy just blew up in his face. Turns out spamming auto-heal burns mana faster than the beast can recharge. It's getting sluggish. Panic mode engaged for the tamer. Before he can react, Wolong pounces and pins him to the dirt. With the handler neutralized, Tiny goes all in. He channels raw lightning into the hammer and delivers a nuke of a strike. When the smoke clears, Tiny is the last one standing. Absolute boss energy gripping both of the monster's severed heads. He marches over to the terrified tamer to squeeze out some intel. The guy spills the tea. Their base is in a lawless city, allegedly run by a mayor leading a city alliance. Yeah, right. Tiny smells a lie instantly. An organization wouldn't treat a high-tier tamer like a disposable pawn. Tiny applies pressure until the guy cracks they are targeting the artifact in Karun. Tiny makes it crystal clear. Give me a name or you don't leave this spot alive. The guy is trembling, claiming he's dead meat if he snitches. Tiny shrugs. That's just a hypothesis. Let's test it. After wrapping up the interrogation, Tiny sets his sights on the port city of Annexon. Flashback to Esgard's instructions: meet a contact at a specific pub. Tiny locates the joint and steps inside. He stops dead. Sitting right there, Esgard himself. The old man offers a quick, "My bad." Then glitch. His entire body morphs into the most generic NPC-looking dude imaginable. "No booze for minors," the stranger quips. Tiny is shook. The face is completely unrecognizable. But the scary part, Tiny senses absolutely zero mana coming from him. It's not a spell to break. It's not an illusion. It's total erasure. Suddenly, some locals start cackling nearby. "Daycare is down the street, kid." One starts mocking Tiny's black hair. Classic mistake. Wolong instantly materializes between them, growling. The bullies scramble back in pure terror. Tiny thinks, maybe too aggressive. Nah, some people just need a reality check. The shapeshifter eyes the wolf. "Spirit summoner," he realizes. The pieces click. This is the VIP client. He apologizes for the delay and ushers Tiny into the back room. Tiny flashes a silver tablet. Confirmed. It is the official seal of the Duke of Valentia. The man drops the act. He leads Black Wing, the Duke's shadow intelligence unit. These aren't just fighters, they are the world's elite spies. He introduces himself as Jay the Mastermind. Tiny's brain is lagging. A commander like Jay should be overflowing with power, yet his mana signature is void. Jay drops the truth bomb: "I never awakened my mana." Tiny's jaw hits the floor. Jay just chuckles. Flickering back to Esgard's face for a second, he admits that while zero mana makes magical disguises tricky, it makes him invisible to sensors, untrackable. Tiny admits that's insanely risky. Jay grins. That's the rush. Getting serious, Jay pulls up a profile. Gale Anderson, 7th Circle Mage, the Warlock of Tsunami. Gone. Poof. Tiny knows this is a nightmare scenario. A mage who controls the ocean. Jay explains Gale went dark 2 weeks ago at sea. Zero comms. Total blackout. Major issue: Gale was supposed to be Tiny's recommendation letter. Jay slides over a new ID tablet. Plan B. Tiny is relieved. Esgard came through. Then he drops the name he beat out of the tamer earlier. Hassel, a devil worshipper tied to the Karun incident. Jay frowns. Sounds like an orc or werebeast name. He promises to investigate. Suddenly, bang bang. A frantic knock kills the vibe. An agent bursts in. "Boss, move it. They're here." Tiny tenses up, expecting an assassin squad. The threat: a mob of hungry lunch customers. Cut to the legendary spy chief sweating while serving stew. Tiny watches the madness. How does a front for international espionage have 5-star Yelp reviews? 2 days later, Flaxen docks, face-covered new ID ready. Tiny steps onto the ship bound for Karun. Tiny flashes his ID, pumping a subtle jolt of mana into the seal. The clerk flinches like he just touched a live wire. A noble riding solo, unheard of. Tiny spins a sob story about hailing from a disgraced house to explain the lack of an entourage. The clerk buys it hook, line, and sinker, stuttering out apologies and practically bowing as he waves Tiny through. Stepping onto the deck, Tiny runs through the mental script Jay prepped for his cover identity. He's playing the role of a lost Moor descendant, that old noble bloodline framed as devil worshippers way back when. They vanished 40 years ago, but their signature black hair and eyes make them the perfect mask for Tiny's current look. So now he's a tragic runaway. Though honestly, the whole son of a chivalrous elf bit feels like overkill. He barely gets comfortable before his internal radar goes off. Dark mana is shifting nearby, and it's heavy. The malice isn't coming from a passenger, it's radiating from the ship's gut. The air grows thick with shifting energy. This isn't one rogue bad guy. The vile aura is infecting the entire crowd like a contagion. Tiny connects the dots. This isn't a hijack. It's a setup for something way more sinister. They're prepping a mass ritual sacrifice. Suddenly, a guy breaks cover, lunging at Tiny with murder in his eyes. A blade flashes toward his skull, but Tiny doesn't blink. He snatches the attacker's wrist mid-air. Snap. The bone shatters like dry wood. The scream pierces the air, freezing the horrified crowd as blood sprays the deck. While onlookers panic over the maimed attacker, someone shouts for mercy. Tiny, he doubles down. He kicks the fallen blade up, grabs it, and buries it deep into another cultist's chest in one fluid motion. Instant kill. But as the guy hacks up blood, a thick, foul smog starts hissing out of the corpse. The stench of rot hits everyone and panic erupts. The passengers scream the truth: demon worshipper. A crewman rushes over, thanking Tiny for the save, but his approach is way too tactical to be friendly. Tiny isn't buying it. He grabs the faker, torques his arm, and hurls him into another hidden accomplice like a bowling ball. 2 more down. Tiny calmly tallies the body count, while the remaining cultists realize their cover is blown. They scatter, screaming murderer to flip the script, but the dark energy pouring off them proves they're all demon filth. The captain storms in, feigning shock and outrage, launching into a frantic apology tour. He tries to pin it on rogue employees and asks for help, but Tiny just laughs at the B-movie acting, then ends him. Before the captain's head even hits the floorboards, a massive plume of black smoke erupts from his neck. He was the most rotten of the bunch. Cut to the royal castle. King Imad van Karan gets the grim briefing that shipping crew had been compromised for 5 solid years. Most of the sailors were carrying a low-level demonic pathogen, just enough juice to operate, but the captain, he had advanced to a greater stage of corruption. The king learns the dark math reaching that level requires sacrificing hundreds of lives, maybe thousands. That blood price fuels high-level clans to rip through dimensional barriers. Tiny lays it out. These cultists aren't just criminals, they're a literal plague. The king admits he's been asleep at the wheel. He hasn't seen darkness this concentrated in 30 years. He commends Tiny, addressing him by his cover ID, the elf-blooded spirit summoner. Impressed by the save, the king demands to see the spirit beast. The advisors immediately lose their minds. They scream, security risk, but Tiny ignores them, summoning Walling instantly. The raw power shakes the king to his core. Imad immediately orders the room cleared for a private chat, ignoring his guard's panic. Despite the danger of being alone with a stranger, the king waits for the door to click shut before dropping the act. He stares Tiny down and calls his bluff. I know the elf story is garbage. He demands the truth about Tiny's mission, having clocked the lie from the start. The tell biology. Elves can't have black hair. Tiny stands there completely stunned that his cover is blown. Imad clarifies that only royalty knows that genetic quirk. Tiny drops the charade and apologizes. He comes clean. He's hunting the cult to stop them from snatching a divine artifact. If they succeed, Karun is doomed. But the king isn't done drilling him yet. He pegs Tiny as an Empire native, pointing out the massive diplomatic nightmare that creates for Karun's neutrality. He chooses the kingdom's alliance over the Empire, ignoring the shady looks everyone gives him for being a disguised imperial citizen. But the king decides to roll the dice on him. He is banking everything on Tiny's status. As a spirit summoner, relying on that old cliché that anyone with a soul pure enough to command spirits has to be a total saint. Tiny actually feels a little cringe about that, especially since he knows from his past life that spirit summoners can be absolute trash. Still, he seizes the moment to demand a face-to-face with the artifact guardians. He swears he will go all out for Karun. The king buys it officially, locking in his trust. Later, the monarch skips all the boring pomp and circumstance, and straight up knights Tiny on the spot, assigning him to guard the sacred artifact. As that shiny badge gets pinned to his chest, Tiny realizes this is his first knighthood in this timeline. He vows right then and there to use this second chance to save humanity. But things get dark fast when Tiny drops the name of the mastermind, Hustle. The king freezes. He recognizes that name implies orcish origins and his face goes grim. Upon hearing this, he demands to know if the intel is solid. Tiny hits him with the receipts. Source is a 5th circle mage, Your Highness. The king needs a minute to process that bombshell and dismisses him. Meanwhile, chaos is unfolding elsewhere. The tsunami sorcerer is straining to hold a magical shield around a dimensional crack, pouring every ounce of mana he has into it. He is gasping for air when a stranger strolls in, mocking his effort. The sorcerer screams, "It is Hustle." The villain sneers, noting how dangerous our MC is becoming to their agenda. Back at the castle, Tiny reports to the Divine Artifact Protection Troop, and the vibe is instantly toxic. The vets are not buying that a kid can fight. One guy, Mason, starts loudly trash-talking Tiny, claiming he bought his rank without paying his dues. Tiny just sighs, already over it. He realizes the king only put him here because the artifact is seen as a useless decoration, and this unit is basically a daycare for failures. Realizing he needs to squash this beef early, Tiny decides to establish the pecking order right now. He strolls up to Mason, chatting casually, but the moment Mason tries to pull rank and intimidate him, Tiny snaps his fingers and summons his familiar. Boom. The room is flooded with overwhelming pressure. The knights are shaking in their boots as Tiny makes it clear who is actually in charge. He smirks, mentioning he was hunting for a demon follower to make an example of, and asks if any of them want to volunteer. Pure panic. They all scramble to deny it and snap to attention. Tiny coldly tells them to get their act together from now on. But something still feels off. He recalls the king's reaction earlier and starts suspecting the monarch already knew about Hustle. His train of thought gets derailed by a voice. A man walks in laughing, actually praising Tiny for scaring the wits out of the squad. He is clearly amused and introduces himself, Truman, captain of the Divine Artifact Protection Unit. Tiny plays nice and greets him, but internally, he is analyzing the guy. The captain's power level seems way too low for his rank. Truman knows Tiny volunteered for this gig, so he cuts the small talk and immediately asks about Tiny's interest in the sacred artifact. That directness triggers Tiny's alarm bells, because it feels way too connected to the Karun disaster. Tiny keeps a poker face, acting curious but giving away absolutely nothing. Truman sees right through him. He figures the kid is curious, so he drags Tiny to a private spot to drop some lore. He slams a stack of heavy books on the table. He tells Tiny that everyone has the wrong idea about these holy tools. Take the holy barrier. Truman points out it only stops low-level trash but is useless against actual demonic energy. Because it is so weak, most people think these artifacts are just glorified museum pieces. To correct that mindset, the captain points to a specific text detailing an ancient pact, a promise from the mythical age, that proves these tools were designed to be humanity's ultimate shield. As Tiny listens, he realizes he misread this guy. There is zero malicious intent coming from Truman, so Tiny finally relaxes his guard. Eventually, Truman decides reading is for nerds and tells Tiny, "Why read when you can see the real thing?" He leads Tiny deep into the most secure vault in the castle. As they walk, Truman asks for his name and explains why everyone treats this guarding gig like a dead-end job. Tiny assumes it is, because the artifact is just a symbol. But then, Truman swings the heavy doors open. Inside floats the massive glowing masterpiece Humanitas. It is absolutely majestic, suspended in midair by its own power. Truman explains that the guardian job is a joke because the artifact does not need protection. Nobody even knows what keeps it floating, but the legend says only the truly worthy can touch it. Since the thing basically defends itself, nobody bothers assigning elite guards to it. Tiny decides to test that theory. He reaches out, and the split second his fingers get close. Blinded by a flash of pure light, the captain is absolutely floored. He's never witnessed raw power like this. Tiny senses the shift instantly, his body reacting to the intense mana vibrations in the air. He realizes the artifact's barrier isn't just glowing, it's practically singing to his specific energy signature. The captain grips his shoulder, totally shook, realizing Tiny is having a silent conversation with the relic. Back outside, the veteran admits Tiny is full of wild cards. The old man has been in the game for years and says he's never seen anything like it, earning him some major respect from Tiny. Tiny sees that, while the captain isn't a combat god, he takes his duty seriously. Then the vibe dies. Greg Simbo from the Royal Knights struts in like he owns the server. He treats the captain like an NPC and unloads his toxicity on Tiny, calling him a trash-tier half-elf. Tiny casually claps back. He's a quarter-elf, actually sticking to his cover story. Greg just laughs, claiming elves are overrated, and tries to jump him to prove a point. Tiny doesn't even flinch. He reads the attack in 4K resolution. He sidesteps, locks the arm, and introduces Greg's face to the pavement. But the guy still won't shut up. So Tiny lifts him up and dribbles him off the concrete one more time for good measure. While Greg is eating dirt and regretting his life choices, the captain watches from the back eyes popping out of his head. Meanwhile, a shadowy figure watches from the high ground, thinking things just got spicy, now that Tiny is on the board. Suddenly, Robert Dumble steps up for a beating, but gets one shot with a simple slap. The other knights rage rush him, but Tiny drops them like dominoes, without breaking a sweat. The heat turns up when Vice Captain Randolph Granchest decides to crash the party. Steel clashes on steel, and after getting shoved back, Randolph gets props from Tiny for actually being decent. Tiny asks if he knows a guy named Hustle, but the vice captain draws a total blank, leaving Tiny confused. Then the air gets heavy. Someone with insane mana just walked into the arena. Calling out Tiny's ruthless streak, Tiny instantly clocks him. This guy is a high-level threat. Definitely challenger grade. It's Liam von Peterson, the Royal Knight captain himself. Tiny tries to salute. Liam waves it off. He's just an OG looking for some entertainment. He dangles a carrot. He'll spill intel on Hustle if Tiny gives him a proper fight. Fighting a top-tier legend and getting answers, Tiny snaps up that offer instantly. No warm-ups. Tiny goes 0 to 100 immediately, cracking the ground beneath him. He warns Liam to stay sharp as their weapons smash together with earth-shaking force. Tiny goes for a follow-up kick, but it's like kicking a mountain. He retreats, realizing Liam's defense is rock solid. It's the perfect tank build. Tiny can feel the sheer weight and stability of a true challenger-grade master. Despite the level gap, Liam is hyped on Tiny's technique and decides to stop holding back, rushing in to escalate the duel. They blur into a flurry of strikes. Liam notes the kid has skills but lacks that veteran polish. Tiny is literally downloading Liam's moves mid-fight, studying how he stays grounded under pressure. Bam! Tiny lands a 4-hit combo. Liam admits, genius is an insult, this kid is a straight-up monster. Tiny takes the compliment and keeps the pressure up until Liam decides to wrap things up. The captain unleashes a final shockwave that wrecks Tiny's balance and blasts him back, ending the session before someone actually dies. Liam got his thrill, so he agrees to pay up with the info. Tiny catches his breath, mind racing about the dark truth behind Hustle's identity. The old master is grinning. He hasn't felt this alive in decades. Tiny is just as stoked, silently tipping his hat to the captain's insane skills. Promise kept. Liam drops a name, Rittman. He describes Rittman as an imperial knight, who answers only to the crown and roams the world enough to know Hustle. Liam offers to pull some strings for a meeting, but a messenger bursts in screaming Tiny's name. The king demands his presence right now. Tiny rushes to the throne room. The king drops a bomb. He's already found the guy. Standing there is Rittman, the East Coast specialist. Tiny is floored. He never even asked the king for help. And it's the exact dude Liam just talked about. Rittman shoots Tiny a look and says hello. The hero, fresh from stomping out the demon fanatics, hits Tiny with a casual, "You looking for me," forcing Tiny to scramble and act polite. The king catches the vibe immediately, while Tiny is internally screaming at him for not giving a heads up so he could prep his acting chops. Thinking on his feet, Tiny stammers that he only approached because the guy's whole aesthetic screamed Eastern Continent. He adds that he's actually dying to visit the East, and Rittman swallows the bait whole, mentioning the king loves rewarding explorers. Apparently, the king has a habit of making it rain treasures whenever Rittman maps out a fresh travel route. But then the king drops a bomb, reminding Tiny he isn't going anywhere until he honors his blood oath to wipe out the demon followers. Tiny freezes, totally confused why the king is airing this dirty laundry right now, especially with Rittman standing right there. He does a quick monoscan on Rittman and finds it's completely standard, meaning the Wulin would have already crushed him if he was a cultist. But there's a twist. Rittman's energy signature is a weird hybrid of beast and human, triggering a memory of Jay talking about orcs and beastmen. The king then tells Rittman he's going to be a massive asset in slaughtering the cult, which leaves Rittman absolutely shook because he was.